close your eyes for a moment. Breathe in and out. Let the weight of the day soften, like waves pulling gently away from the shore. You're here now, where time has no urgency, and stories unfold like a slow breeze through ancient trees. Imagine this, somewhere far away, beneath layers of earth untouched by modern feet, there lies a forgotten path. Moss creeps over stones worn smooth by countless steps of people whose names you'll never know. Their voices are gone, their songs lost in the winds of centuries. Yet, something lingers. A presence, a whisper, a feeling that the past isn't as distant as we like to believe. Not really. It waits in the quiet corners, patient, hidden, breathing beneath the surface of the world we think we know. Tonight, you'll drift through those corners. As you settle into stillness, let your mind wander with me. There's no rush. Here, time stretches out like an endless plain beneath a starlit sky. Somewhere beyond your walls, the world hums with its usual busyness. But here, in this space, there is only calm, curiosity, and the slow unraveling of hidden histories. Have you ever wondered how many stories lie beneath our feet? Not the stories in textbooks or documentaries, the ones that never made it into memory. A village swallowed by the sands, a temple overtaken by the sea, words written on crumbling parchment, once read by someone just like you, someone who also watched the stars and asked questions that stretched beyond their life. Take, for example, the fragment of a clay tablet found deep in the desert, its lines of script worn, the language unknown. No translation, just a piece of something larger. Who wrote it? Was it a simple note, a record of crops, or a farewell from someone whose world was slipping away? We'll never know. And yet, holding that fragment, you're touching the same world they once stood in. The same earth, the same sky. History isn't just dates and battles. Sometimes, it's a small handprint in a cave wall, placed there 10,000 years ago, fingers splayed wide like a child playing with paint. That handprint remains while entire civilizations rose and crumbled. One simple mark, outlasting kings and empires. And it makes you wonder, what marks will we leave? Tonight's journey isn't about answers, it's about questions. The kind that settle softly into your thoughts as you drift closer to sleep. What else lies hidden? How much of history is quietly watching us from the shadows, unnoticed? Imagine standing at the edge of an ancient forest where trees have grown over forgotten roads. If you listen closely enough, can you hear footsteps from long ago? Not ghosts, just the echo of people who lived, loved, and vanished, leaving behind nothing but faint traces. Footsteps blending into the heartbeat of the earth. As you sink deeper into the softness of this moment, let the outside world fade. There's nowhere to be but here, just you, the stillness, and stories carried on the breeze of time. We'll begin gently, exploring places where civilizations bloomed and withered, their secrets cradled in the soil. There's no need to hold onto every detail. Let them wash over you, like waves in a vast ocean of forgotten moments. Feel your breath slow. Eyes grow heavier. The journey is just beginning. And as you drift further into this calm expanse, remember, sometimes the past isn't buried. It's waiting, quietly, patiently, ready to whisper, if you're willing to listen. In the next part of our journey, we'll wander beneath golden sands to a city long lost, a place where streets once bustled with laughter and markets sang with life, now swallowed by silence. But for now, breathe. Let that thought linger like a gentle breeze, pulling you closer to sleep. Imagine standing in the middle of an endless desert, golden dunes rolling like waves across a sea of sand. The sun blazes overhead, casting a shimmering heat haze across the horizon. But beneath your feet, hidden under layers of time and dust, lies something remarkable. A city, not just any city, a place where people once walked, spoke, loved, and dreamed, now buried, forgotten by the world above. As you lie there, breathing slowly, picture yourself brushing away the sand with your fingertips. Grain by grain, the surface gives way to stone. Carvings emerge, worn, yet unmistakably deliberate. Symbols of a language no one speaks anymore. Was it a temple, a marketplace, someone's home? The desert, silent and vast, holds its secrets close. Thousands of years ago, this place was alive. Imagine the sound of footsteps on cobbled streets, the distant calls of merchants offering fragrant spices and colorful fabrics, children laughing, weaving through crowded stalls, the aroma of roasted grains filling the air. Now, that life has dissolved into the silence of shifting sands. Entire buildings lie beneath, arches, courtyards, even wells where people once drew water, covered, forgotten. What causes a city to vanish? War, drought, a sudden storm swallowing everything whole, or something quieter, people leaving one by one until only empty streets remained. The desert doesn't say, it just waits, patient, covering the past with every breeze. And there's something oddly comforting in that. A reminder that time softens everything. Pain, joy, noise, all of it fades like footprints erased by the wind. How many other cities are lost beneath us, waiting to be remembered? Imagine you found a door beneath the sand, its wooden planks petrified with age, hinges rusted. If you opened it, what would you see? A room frozen in time? Clay pots still arranged neatly on shelves? A floor littered with tools, left as if someone just stepped out and never returned? There's something deeply human about these forgotten things. Objects once held in living hands. Hands that worked, created, and reached for the same stars you see tonight. There's a legend whispered among desert travelers, a story about a caravan that vanished without a trace, swallowed by a sandstorm that seemed to come from nowhere. No bones, no carts, nothing ever found. Did they stumble upon the buried city? Did they hear voices calling from beneath the dunes, urging them closer? Or was it just the wind playing tricks, as deserts often do? The world is layered with stories like this. Beneath modern streets, under mountains, beneath lakes that shimmer under moonlight, there are places humanity has forgotten. It's as if history has folds, layers tucked beneath layers, waiting for curious hands to lift them. And sometimes you wonder, if you dig deep enough, would you find a version of yourself there? Not literally, but something familiar. A feeling, a realization that no matter how far back you go, people have always wondered the same things you do now. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Will anyone remember us? The answer, often, is no. Most names fade. Most stories vanish. And yet, something remains. In the stones, in the sands, in the air that brushes your skin tonight. Let those thoughts drift like dunes shifting under the wind. There's no need to hold on to them too tightly. Just let them wash over you. Soft, slow, like the desert breeze under a blanket of stars. In the next part of our journey, we'll leave the sands behind and step into the shadows of ancient libraries. vast, halls of wisdom filled with knowledge that once illuminated the world and then vanished into darkness. But for now, breathe. Let the sand settle. Let your body grow heavier and drift a little deeper into calm. Imagine a vast hall stretching into darkness, lined with towering shelves of ancient scrolls and brittle pages. Lanterns flicker softly, casting a warm glow on dust particles dancing in the still air. The scent is unmistakable. Aged parchment, faint traces of ink, and the distant echo of stories yearning to be remembered. Now, imagine standing at the entrance of such a place, your fingertips grazing the leather bindings of forgotten books. Each one holds a world within, a voice from the past speaking across centuries. Yet most of these voices have fallen silent forever. Centuries ago, knowledge wasn't just power, it was sacred. Across ancient lands, people built libraries, not just to store words, but to preserve the very fabric of understanding. Ideas, maps, medicines, dreams. Places like the Great Library of Alexandria, filled with scrolls so numerous that scholars believed it held the sum of all human knowledge. At the time, imagine that. A place where one could walk in seeking a simple answer and emerge days later, mind filled with questions even deeper than before. But then, flames, chaos. Scrolls turned to ash, knowledge evaporating into the night sky like fleeting sparks. Why does history so often burn its own pages? Wars rage, rulers rise and fall, and somewhere in the middle, books are lost. Not just facts, but cures for forgotten illnesses, stories of distant lands, and philosophies that might have reshaped how we see the world. And yet, some say fragments survived, tucked away in caves, hidden beneath temple floors, or passed down through whispers, too dangerous or precious to be left in plain sight. What secrets did those pages hold? Ideas that could have changed the course of humanity, or perhaps truths too unsettling to bear? Close your eyes. Picture yourself gently unrolling a scroll. The ink has faded, but the shapes remain. A language lost to time. Symbols that seem almost familiar. Was it a poem? A warning? A simple shopping list from millennia ago? That's the thing about history. It rarely tells you what's important. Sometimes it's the smallest, most ordinary details that survive, while grand stories crumble into silence. There are tales, half legend, half truth, of a secret library buried beneath the sands of Egypt, filled with texts older than recorded history. Scholars have searched for it, dreamt of it, some dedicating their entire lives to finding just one fragment. But the desert guards its secrets well, wrapping them in layers of time and silence. And then there's the story of the House of Wisdom in Baghdad, a place where astronomers, mathematicians, and philosophers once gathered to exchange ideas. It was a beacon, a shining center of knowledge. Until one day, invaders came. Books thrown into the river turned the waters black with ink, as if the world itself was weeping for what was lost. How much do we not know because of what's been erased? It's easy to think of history as a straight line, but what if it's more like a tapestry with entire sections torn out? Missing threads we'll never weave back in. That thought can feel unsettling, or strangely peaceful. After all, not every mystery needs solving. Some stories are meant to drift away, like leaves carried by a gentle breeze. You might wonder, lying here in the quiet, how much of what we believe is built on missing pieces? How many truths are shadows, filling the gaps where facts once stood? And yet, the silence isn't empty. there's comfort in knowing that somewhere, deep underground or hidden in forgotten corners of the world, these ancient words still exist, waiting, perhaps, for someone to stumble upon them by chance. As your body sinks deeper into rest, let that image linger. A vast hall of lost words, stretching endlessly, filled with the soft rustle of turning pages that no one turns anymore. Stories waiting in the dark, patient, timeless. Next, we'll leave the libraries behind and travel to a place even older. A temple etched into stone, older than history itself, where questions of human origins whisper through ancient pillars. But for now, let that thought drift like a feather on the wind. Breathe in and out. The past is vast. There's no rush. Imagine standing at the edge of a windswept plateau. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of earth and ancient stone. Before you lies something extraordinary. Massive stone pillars arranged in deliberate circles, some carved with strange animals and symbols whose meanings have long since been lost. This is Göbekli Tepe, a place older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge. A place so ancient, it defies everything we thought we knew about the dawn of civilization. Close your eyes. Breathe in the cool, dry air. Picture yourself walking between those towering stones. They loom above you, weathered by millennia, but still standing, as if waiting for someone to notice, to listen. What stories do these stones hold? Each pillar is massive, too large for simple tools, too heavy to move without coordinated effort. And yet someone, thousands upon thousands of years ago, carved them, lifted them, and placed them with purpose. This was no accident, no random scattering of rocks. This was built with intention. But why? A temple, a gathering place, or something beyond what we can imagine. What's most perplexing isn't just what was built, but when. Göbekli Tepe dates back nearly 12,000 years, long before the invention of writing, the wheel, or even farming. According to everything we thought we knew, people back then were supposed to be simple hunter-gatherers, moving with the seasons, surviving hand to mouth. So, how did they build something so complex, so advanced? And maybe a deeper question lingers beneath that. Why did they feel the need to? What drove them to carve animals they couldn't have possibly seen, or symbols that seemed to hint at cosmic knowledge far beyond what primitive people should have understood? Was it a place to worship? A meeting point for distant tribes? Or was it built for reasons we can't comprehend? Lost to a time when human thought itself might have worked differently. Imagine standing there in the stillness, your footsteps crunching softly on ancient gravel. The stones feel alive in a way that's hard to explain, as if they're watching, listening. The carvings aren't random. A fox here, a crane there, serpents winding along the edges. Each one carefully etched by hands that lived and died long before written history began. Hands that bled and ached, working on something whose purpose we can only guess at. And then there's the oddest part. After centuries of use, whoever built this place buried it, deliberately. They didn't abandon it. They covered it up, layer upon layer of dirt and rubble, as if trying to preserve it, or perhaps hide it. But from whom? From what? Was it a ritual, a farewell, or a warning meant for those who might come later? Meant for us? These questions spiral gently, like smoke rising into a darkening sky, never settling, always drifting. There's a strange comfort in not knowing, in understanding that some things resist explanation, that history isn't a neat timeline. It's a puzzle missing most of its pieces. And yet, isn't that what makes it beautiful? The mystery, the not knowing, the vast spaces where imagination can wander, free of boundaries. Maybe those ancient builders knew something we've forgotten. That sometimes it's the questions, not the answers, that connect us across the ages. As you lie there, the quiet of the night wrapping around you like a soft blanket, let that thought sink in. Long before the world we know took shape, people stood under those same stars you see now, wondering, carving, creating, trying to leave something behind, something that would outlast the fleeting spark of their lives. And here you are thinking about them in some strange, beautiful way. They succeeded. Next, we'll journey beyond the stones to a place swallowed by the sea. Temples submerged beneath the waves, where silence is broken only by the soft hush of ocean currents. But for now, breathe. Let your mind drift like the tide, slow and steady. The past is patient, and there's still so much more to explore. Imagine standing on a rocky shoreline, the sky a muted grey as waves lap gently at your feet. The air is thick with salt, and the faint, endless rhythm of the ocean fills your ears, a constant, soothing pulse. Far out on the horizon, something catches your eye. Stone. Not jagged rocks, but pillars. Columns rising from beneath the waves, worn by centuries of water and time. What was once a place of prayer, of gathering and song, now rests beneath the sea's surface, embraced by the ocean's quiet depths. This is not a legend. Along India's eastern coast, in places like Mahabalipuram, ancient temples lie submerged, silent witnesses to a past that nature slowly reclaimed. Stories passed down through generations speak of 7 temples standing proud along the shore. Today, only one remains above water. The others, swallowed by the waves, their spires hidden beneath the currents, their halls filled with fish instead of worshippers. How does a city disappear beneath the sea? Was it a great storm? A sudden earthquake shaking the ground loose beneath it? Or was it slower, year by year, the ocean inching forward, claiming what was once land? People living by the shore must have watched the water rise, helpless, as their homes and temples vanished into the deep. And what did they feel those final days? Desperation, reverence. Perhaps they believed the gods were reclaiming what was theirs, pulling the sacred places back into the depths where they began. Close your eyes and imagine standing there centuries ago. Bells ring in the temple courtyard. Incense drifts through the air, blending with the salty breeze. Families gather, offering prayers under the carved stone arches. Laughter echoes through the markets beyond, the sea a distant, gentle backdrop. Then, one day, the water comes closer. Not with a roar, not at first, just a few inches higher. Enough to soak the edges of the market stalls, to creep into the temples, lower steps. People move inland, leaving offerings behind, hoping the gods will hold back the tide. But they don't. The waves rise, faster now. Storms grow stronger. Walls crumble. Pillars fall. And then, silence. What was once a place of life becomes a graveyard of stone beneath shifting waters. Centuries later, divers find the remains, carvings still visible on submerged walls, figures of gods with serene faces, untouched by time. The ocean, it seems, can erode stone but not spirit. Swimming through the ruins, you might find yourself in a corridor no human has walked in over 1,000 years. Light filtering through the water in soft beams, casting everything in an otherworldly glow. And isn't that what the ocean does? It hides things, swallows them whole, not out of malice, but as part of its endless, cyclical nature. Civilizations rise, build their temples, worship their gods, and then the waves come, washing it all away until only silence remains. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How many other cities lie beneath the seas? We speak of lost places like Atlantis as myths, but the truth is, our coastlines were once different. Thousands of years ago, land stretched farther. People lived where there's now only water. Entire worlds erased by rising tides, leaving only traces. And somewhere, perhaps deep below where any diver can reach, sit temples still, perfectly preserved, candles long extinguished, prayers trapped in stone. There's something humbling about that, the realization that no matter how grand, how sacred, how permanent something feels, nature always reclaims it. Time moves forward, waves rise, sand shifts, and what's left is memory, or the lack of it. As you breathe in slowly, let the image settle, a sunken temple beneath dark waters, fish gliding through empty halls, seaweed draped over once sacred altars. The ocean above ripples gently, indifferent, eternal. In the next part of our journey, we'll leave the waves behind and step onto open plains, vast stretches of land where entire civilizations once thrived, only to vanish into silence. But for now, let the tide of thought pull you deeper into rest. Breathe in and out. The past, like the sea, is vast. Let it carry you. Picture a vast, endless plain stretching to the horizon. The grass sways gently in the wind, whispering across the land like a distant voice calling from long ago. Above, the sky stretches wide and open, an ocean of soft clouds and pale blue, uninterrupted by mountains or forests. This is the steppe, a place where the world feels endless, where time seems to stretch and blur, and where countless people once lived, moved, and vanished without leaving a trace. Close your eyes, feel the breeze on your skin, hear the soft, rhythmic thump of horse hooves against the earth. Faint at first, growing closer, then fading into the distance. For thousands of years, nomadic peoples crossed these lands, their lives intertwined, with the rhythms of the grass, the wind, the sky. They built no cities, carved no monuments. Their homes were tents that rose and fell with the seasons, their footprints erased by the next breeze. And yet, they shaped history in ways we barely remember. When we think of empires, we imagine grand stone buildings, palaces, roads stretching across continents. But what about the empires that left no ruins? No towering walls, no marble statues, just stories carried on the wind and bones hidden beneath the soil. On these steppes, empires rose like storms, swift, powerful, and then gone. Take the Xiongnu, an ancient confederation that once rivaled the early Chinese dynasties. For centuries, they controlled vast territories. Their warriors feared across Asia. Yet today, most people have never heard their name. Their legacy, once written in blood and power, now lingers only in fragments, scattered bones, rusted weapons, vague mentions in foreign texts. How does an entire people disappear from memory? Or the Scythians, nomads whose horses seemed to fly across the plains, whose warriors painted their bodies and carried bows that could strike with deadly precision. They were once a force to be reckoned with, shaping trade routes and influencing distant lands. Yet now, their tales are whispered only in archaeological circles, burial mounds dug up to reveal treasures wrapped in dust and silence. Imagine riding with them, the wind stinging your face, the horizon always just out of reach. Nights spent under skies so full of stars, It feels like you could fall upward into them. Fires crackling softly, faces illuminated in flickering light, stories told in low voices about spirits of the land, gods that ride the clouds. These were people whose lives were constantly moving, following herds, chasing seasons, fleeing enemies, seeking new horizons. And perhaps that's why they left so little behind. Their world wasn't built of stone. It was built of moments, of journeys, of places that changed as quickly as the weather. They didn't need monuments. The steppe was their home, and the sky was their roof. But what happens when a way of life disappears? When the winds shift and the people who once called this place home are gone? Grass grows over old campsites. Bones sink into the soil. The stories that once echoed across the plains fall silent, carried away like dust on the breeze. And yet, if you stand still enough, long enough, you can almost hear them. The distant laughter of children chasing each other through the tall grass, the songs sung to the stars, voices rising into the night air, the quiet, steady breath of horses resting after a long journey. It's all there, just beyond reach, like a dream you almost remember. How many lives have come and gone on this land? How many stories lived, loved, lost, and forgotten? And isn't that the strange, bittersweet truth of history? That most of it slips through our fingers, no matter how tightly we try to hold on. As you lie there, let the vastness of that thought settle around you. The steppe is wide, open, endless, just like time. And somewhere beneath the grass, beneath the soil, beneath the weight of forgotten years, stories sleep. Not gone, just resting. Next, we'll travel to places where grand ambitions met quiet ends. Unfinished structures left abandoned, their builders gone, their purpose a mystery. But for now, let your mind drift like the wind across the plains. Breathe in and out. Let the silence speak. Imagine standing at the base of an enormous stone block, so massive it dwarfs you, casting a long shadow across the rocky ground. You reach out and touch its surface, rough beneath your fingertips, grooves still visible where ancient tools carved and shaped it. The stone was meant to be moved, placed, lifted into something greater, a wall, a temple, a monument to last for ages, but it wasn't. It still lies there, half buried, half finished, abandoned in the middle of nowhere. Why? Why begin something so monumental only to walk away? What made the builders stop? Close your eyes. Feel the weight of that question settling in. The world is full of these places. Unfinished megaliths scattered across continents. Vast stones carved with impossible precision, some weighing hundreds of tons, left where they lay. Projects that should have defied the technology of their time. Labor that must have consumed years, maybe generations, of effort. And yet, they remain incomplete, their purpose lost in the folds of history. Take, for instance, the unfinished obelisk in Aswan, Egypt. A colossal stone slab still resting in its quarry, cracks running through it like scars. Had it been completed, it would have stood taller than any obelisk in history, an achievement beyond comprehension. Workers carved deep trenches around it, preparing to free it from the bedrock. And then, something happened. Maybe the stone fractured, or maybe something else. Something unrecorded, something no one dared write down. And so they left it. Tools set aside, plans abandoned, or journey to Baalbek in Lebanon, where massive stones, each weighing more than an airliner, sit in place, perfectly aligned, and yet nearby, Even larger stones lie unfinished, abandoned in their quarries. How? Even with modern machinery, moving such monoliths would be a feat. And why go to such lengths? Just to stop? There's something haunting about standing before these stones. It's not just their size, it's the silence around them, the unanswered questions, the absence of names or records. These weren't random accidents. They were plans, grand, ambitious, perhaps even desperate, and yet, for reasons lost to time, they were never completed. What drove them? Was it devotion, fear, power? Imagine the people working here, hundreds, maybe thousands, laboring under the sun, their bodies aching, their hands blistered. Stones, carved with precision, moved inch by inch. Orders shouted, ropes pulled, sweat pouring from every pore. Days bleeding into weeks, months into years. And then, quiet. Work ceases. Voices vanish. The site is abandoned, left for nature to reclaim. Did war stop them? Disease? Or perhaps something stranger, an omen, a sign from the gods they believed in? Or could it have been exhaustion, the realization that what they were trying to do was simply beyond human capability? There's a strange kind of beauty in unfinished things, a reminder that not every dream is realized, that even the grandest ambitions can falter, and that's comforting in a way. To know that even in the past, when so much effort was poured into permanence, people stopped, accepted failure, moved on, and yet these stones remain. Centuries pass, empires crumble, languages die, and the stones wait. Wait for someone to notice, someone like you, lying here now, imagining the hands that touched them, the eyes that gazed upon them with hope, frustration, and finally, resignation. What were they trying to say? Maybe there was no message. Maybe the stones were meant to speak through sheer presence. Or maybe the builders thought their work would stand as a testament to their greatness, a monument outlasting memory. Ironically, in never being completed, they've become something else entirely, a mystery. And sometimes, mysteries endure longer than monuments. As your breathing slows, let the image linger. Massive stones resting under a sky that's seen it all. Stars turning above, seasons changing, centuries slipping by like sand through fingers. The stones don't move, they just are. Witnesses to a story we'll never fully know. Next, we'll wander into places where history seems to glitch. Maps that show lands that shouldn't exist, and stories that make you question what's real. But for now, rest. Let the weight of those forgotten stones settle around you like a blanket. Breathe in and out. The past isn't rushing, neither should you. Imagine a grand palace bathed in the golden glow of lanterns, the air heavy with the scent of incense and the soft murmur of courtiers whispering secrets. At the heart of this opulence lies a throne, carved from precious wood and inlaid with shimmering stones. And on that throne sits an emperor, cloaked in silk, adorned with jewels, yet restless. His brow furrows as he gazes into the distance, haunted by something no wealth or power can protect him from. A dream of his own death. Close your eyes and step into his world. Imagine the weight of that crown pressing down, not just with authority, but with dread. The dream was vivid, a shadowed figure, a whispered warning, a fleeting glimpse of an end that felt all too real. Such premonitions seem like the stuff of stories, Yet throughout history, there have been rulers, warriors, and visionaries whose final days were foretold, sometimes in dreams, sometimes in strange coincidences that send shivers down the spine. Consider Julius Caesar. Legend tells of his wife Calpurnia waking from a nightmare on the eve of the Ides of March, pleading with him not to go to the Senate. Blood flowing from statues, visions of his body crumpled beneath blades, signs dismissed as mere superstition. And yet, hours later, history unfolded exactly as the dream had warned. Was it chance, a coincidence, or something deeper, something beyond understanding? Or think of Abraham Lincoln, who, just days before his assassination, reportedly described a dream to his aides. He saw himself walking through the White House, hearing sobs echoing through the halls. In the East Room, a coffin rested, draped in black. When he asked who had died, a soldier replied, "The President." Lincoln awoke shaken, the eerie detail lingering, until soon after, it wasn't just a dream, it was reality. These aren't isolated tales. Across cultures and centuries, stories emerge of people sensing the shadow of their end long before it arrived. Soldiers feeling an inexplicable pull to write farewell letters. Travelers delaying journeys only to narrowly escape disaster. And yes, emperors, despite all their might, unable to escape a future glimpsed in restless sleep. But what are these? Moments, simple coincidences, subconscious fears bubbling to the surface? Or is there something in the folds of time, something that, now and then, lets a sliver of the future slip through? Imagine lying in a quiet chamber, as the emperor might have, staring at the flickering glow of a lantern casting shadows on the walls. His courtiers assure him, "Dreams are just dreams, my lord." And yet, the weight in his chest says otherwise. Morning comes, decisions are made, fate unfolds, and you wonder, how many lives have been shaped by dreams like these? How many warnings went ignored? How many were heeded, altering the course of history in subtle, unseen ways? There's a peculiar comfort in the idea that the future isn't entirely out of reach, that perhaps, in the quiet spaces between waking and sleep, we can brush against it, or maybe that's what makes it unsettling. The thought that time isn't a straight line, but a vast sea where past, present, and future ripple against one another, sometimes sending waves that break into our awareness when we least expect. Lying. Here, your own dreams may flicker at the edge of consciousness, half-formed images, feelings that drift away upon waking. How many times have you felt a shiver of déjà vu, standing in a place you've never been, yet feeling as if you have? Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's everything. As you sink deeper into rest, let the palace fade, the emperor's worry dissolving into the night, the weight of his dream slipping away like mist at dawn. History is filled with these strange echoes, moments that seem to reach forward, leaving quiet footprints in time. Next, we'll explore maps that hold their own mysteries, charts depicting lands that, according to modern knowledge, shouldn't exist at all. But for now, breathe. Let the questions drift, soft and slow. The past, like sleep, has its secrets. Let them surround you. Imagine unfurling an ancient map, aged parchment stretching out before you, edges frayed, ink faded but still legible. Symbols dance across its surface, coastlines, mountains, unfamiliar place names. You trace your finger along the curves and contours, feeling the delicate texture beneath your skin. There's something mesmerizing about old maps, the way they capture both knowledge and mystery, the known world drawn with certainty, and the unknown filled with dragons, sea monsters, and ominous warnings. Here be mysteries. But some maps whisper stranger stories. Take the Piri Reis map. Created in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral and cartographer, it's a stunning artifact. Not just for its artistry, but for what it depicts and what it suggests. Parts of South America drawn with remarkable accuracy, coastlines aligned with a precision that seems out of place for its time. And then there's the real enigma, the bottom of the map, where an outline of Antarctica appears, without ice. Pause for a moment. Let that settle in. Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until centuries later, and yet there it is, on a map made before telescopes, satellites, or planes, and not just the ice-covered continent we know today, but seemingly showing its landmass beneath the glaciers, details only confirmed by modern seismic scans. How? Where did Piri Reis get this information? His own notes claim the map was based on even older sources, charts passed down from lost civilizations, records no longer known to history. Close your eyes and imagine the map makers of the past. Bent over candlelit tables, quills scratching against parchment. Sailors returning with stories of strange lands and endless seas, their words becoming lines on paper. But what if some of those stories weren't just hearsay? What if they came from knowledge older than we can fathom? The Piri Reis map isn't alone. There are other ancient charts, like the Orontius Phineas map from the 1500s, also showing lands supposedly unknown at the time. Is it mere coincidence? An uncanny guess? Or evidence of something more? A glimpse into a forgotten chapter of human history, where explorers ventured farther than our books recall. And that raises the question, how much have we lost? Knowledge, once known, slipping through the cracks of time. Wars, fires, floods, countless ways for wisdom to vanish. Yet sometimes, fragments remain. Maps tucked into dusty shelves, waiting for someone to notice the oddities. Someone like you, lying here now, tracing imagined coastlines in your mind. There's a legend, softly spoken among certain circles, that ancient civilizations might have sailed the seas long before our recorded explorers. That there were cultures who charted the stars with such precision they could cross vast oceans, leaving faint footprints in stories and artifacts scattered across the world. Could that be true? Could history be deeper, older, more tangled than we've been told? Or maybe it's something simpler, a mistake, a coincidence, the human brain seeing patterns where none exist. But even that explanation doesn't quiet the nagging thought. What if the past was stranger than we dare to believe? Imagine standing on the deck of an ancient ship, sails billowing against the wind, horizon endless and blue. No GPS, no engines, just stars, intuition, and a daring spirit. Those early explorers, whoever they were, must have looked at the sea with equal parts fear and wonder. Perhaps that's the most human thing of all, our desire to see what lies beyond the edge. As you breathe in slowly, let the image of that map drift across your mind like a ship gliding over calm waters. Coastlines fading into mist, symbols dissolving into darkness. There are places on Earth still unexplored, depths of oceans untouched, and who knows what maps, tucked away in forgotten drawers or buried beneath centuries of dust, are yet to be found? Maps that might turn everything we think we know upside down. Next, we'll dive into the stories of inventors whose creations could have changed the world, had they not vanished along with their genius. But for now, let your mind sail gently into calm seas. No rush. The journey is long and the night is still young. Imagine a dimly lit workshop, tools scattered across a wooden bench, gears and cogs glinting under the flickering glow of a single lantern. The air smells of oil, metal shavings, and burning candles. In the corner, a figure works tirelessly, hands moving with practiced precision, eyes reflecting both exhaustion and unwavering purpose. Hours stretch into days, days into months, all for an invention that could change the world. But then, silence. The workshop empties, the papers vanish. The invention, once a spark of brilliance, slips into history's shadows. How many minds have dreamed revolutionary ideas only to be forgotten? Not because they failed, but because the world wasn't ready, or worse, because someone made sure their ideas never saw the light of day. Take Nikola Tesla, for example. Widely known, yet so much of his work remains shrouded in mystery. Toward the end of his life, Tesla claimed to have developed a device capable of transmitting limitless energy through the air, a technology that, if real, could have rendered wires obsolete and electricity freely accessible to all. Imagine that, a world without power lines, where energy flowed invisibly like radio waves. Yet after Tesla's death, many of his papers disappeared, confiscated, lost, or simply gone. Why? What was in those pages? A dream too grand? Or a threat to those who profit from control? Tesla isn't alone. There's the story of Antonio Meucci, a humble inventor who, before Alexander Graham Bell, created a prototype for voice communication, a telephone of his own. Financial struggles and legal hurdles kept him from patenting it properly, and history remembered Bell instead. Meucci died in obscurity, his invention credited to another. How many others like him existed? Brilliant minds without the means to protect their creations, swallowed by time's indifference. Then there's the tale of Victor Schauberger, an Austrian forester fascinated by water's natural movements. He claimed to have harnessed vortex energy, a force that could revolutionize propulsion and energy systems. His ideas were mocked, yet whispered rumors persist that governments and corporations quietly investigated his work. Schauberger died, disillusioned, his inventions dismissed as pseudoscience. But you wonder, what if there was something there? Something we chose to ignore? Close your eyes. Picture an inventor in some forgotten era, scribbling notes late into the night, driven by an idea no one else can see. They imagine a future shaped by their vision, only to be met with closed doors, laughter, disbelief. How many inventions lie buried in time because someone, somewhere decided the world wasn't ready? Or worse, because revealing them would upend everything we think we know. Not every vanishing is sinister. Sometimes the idea simply fades. Papers lost in fires, prototypes discarded when their creator passes away. A child finds an old machine in a dusty attic, fiddles with it, never realizing it was once someone's world-changing dream. History isn't just written by victors, it's sculpted by what survives, and so much doesn't. And yet, there's something strangely comforting in that. Knowing that genius isn't rare, it flickers everywhere, in unexpected places, in minds that history forgets. Ideas are like seeds, some flourish, some never sprout, and some lie dormant, waiting for the right moment. What if you've walked past a forgotten invention without knowing it? A rusted machine in a museum corner, overlooked. An old blueprint tucked away in a library no one visits. Or maybe some of those lost ideas aren't lost at all. Maybe they're hidden, protected, guarded, waiting for the right eyes to rediscover them. As you lie there, breathing slow and steady, let those thoughts drift like soft sparks in the dark. How many world-changing ideas slip through our grasp? How many more remain just beyond reach, waiting for someone curious enough to dig deeper? Next, we'll explore the letters that never reached their destination. Messages that, had they arrived, might have altered history in ways we can't imagine. But for now, rest. Let your mind settle into the quiet. The world is full of forgotten dreams. Let them float by like clouds in the night sky. Imagine a sealed letter folded with care, the wax stamp pressed with deliberate finality. Ink, once wet and glistening, now dried and faded. The sender's hand lingers on the parchment for a moment longer before it's passed along, entrusted to a courier, placed in a satchel, and sent on its way. A message, destined to change someone's world, if it arrives. But what happens when it doesn't? Close your eyes. Picture the letter carried over rugged mountains, through dense forests, across turbulent seas. Storms rage, bandits lurk, and countless obstacles lie between sender and receiver. So many chances for it to vanish, lost to weather, stolen, misplaced. And with its disappearance, a decision goes unheard. A love confessed too late. A warning undelivered. A war declared or avoided slips into silence. How many lives were altered by words that never found their mark? History holds countless stories of lost letters, some rediscovered centuries later, some gone forever. Consider the tale of a letter written by King Charles I of England during his imprisonment. He penned words pleading for mercy, seeking to prevent his execution. But the letter, delayed or intercepted, arrived too late. His head rolled on the scaffold, the plea unopened, forgotten amidst the crowd's roar. One message, and history took a different path. Or think of Napoleon, exiled and plotting, sending secret communications to his allies in Europe. Some letters reached their destinations, sparking revolts and stirring ambitions, but others vanished. Couriers lost at sea, papers burned by nervous messengers fearing capture. Imagine the weight of that, an empire's resurgence resting on ink and parchment, swallowed by the ocean's depths. Then there's the love letter discovered decades later in an old attic. Two souls, separated by war, one believing they'd been forgotten. The letter, lost in the shuffle of chaos, never arrived. A life lived under the shadow of unanswered affection. All because a piece of paper didn't make it through. But not all lost letters are personal. Some carry information that could have shifted global tides. During World War I, there was a message, coded, urgent, sent between German commanders, warning of an impending attack. It never arrived. The battle unfolded with devastating consequences. Lives lost in the thousands. One envelope, one piece of paper could have changed everything. And yet, isn't that the strange power of words? Their presence or absence ripples through time. A missed message, a lost note, a letter caught in a storm, and history bends. What if there are letters still out there? Papers sealed in forgotten chests, buried in shipwrecks deep beneath the sea, tucked into walls during hurried escapes. Messages waiting to be read, their contents frozen in time. Imagine opening such a letter today, reading words meant for someone long gone, feelings and thoughts preserved like a time capsule. There's something profoundly human about that. A reminder that across centuries, people wanted to be heard, to connect, to reach out across the vastness of life's uncertainties. And sometimes the universe intervenes. There are stories, rare but real, of letters arriving decades late. A mother receiving a note from her soldier son half a century after it was sent. Tears shed over words thought lost to time. Why now? Destiny, chance, or just the slow, winding path that some messages take to reach their intended hearts. As you breathe in and out, let the image linger. An envelope drifting through time, carried by unseen hands, across landscapes and centuries, sealed, waiting. Somewhere out there, perhaps countless letters still float, unread, unseen, their contents unknown, yet profoundly real. Next, we'll turn to the world of art, paintings that hold mysteries, symbols that shouldn't be there, images that challenge what we think we know about the past. But for now, rest. Let the letters drift away like leaves carried on a gentle breeze. Breathe deeply. The words will wait. Imagine standing in a dimly lit gallery, surrounded by paintings whose colors have softened with age. The room is quiet, the only sound your footsteps echoing against the old wooden floor. You pause before a canvas, layers of oil paint capturing a scene centuries old, a royal court, a village festival, a serene landscape. On the surface, it seems ordinary, but then your eyes catch something, a detail that shouldn't be there. A figure holding an object too modern, a background element, resembling technology far beyond the painting's era. How? A trick of the imagination? A coincidence? Or something more? A whisper from the past hinting at a truth we've overlooked. Art has always been a window into the world of its time. Portraits capturing power, landscapes preserving fleeting beauty. But sometimes, artists include things that make us pause. Take the painting, The Madonna with Saint Giovannino, a 15th century work that, at first glance, appears to be a typical religious scene, but look closely above the Virgin Mary's shoulder, and there it is. A strange, disc-shaped object hovering in the sky. Nearby, a man gazes upward, shielding his eyes from something unexplained. Centuries later, theories swirl. Was it a representation of an angelic presence? A symbolic element lost to modern understanding? Or something else entirely? It's easy to dismiss such details as artistic flourishes until you find them in multiple works across different countries, painted by artists who never knew one another. Then there's the Baptism of Christ, painted in 1710 by Ert de Gelder. High above the central scene, a radiant, circular object beams down light in a way that feels oddly familiar. Too modern, too deliberate. Why depict something so out of place for the time? Religious symbolism, perhaps. But what inspired that shape? What stories circulated back then, quietly reflected in the brushstrokes? And it's not just the skies that hold mysteries. Some paintings seem to capture devices that shouldn't exist yet. Figures holding objects resembling modern gadgets, details that defy historical timelines. Skeptics point to coincidence, to anachronisms born of restoration or misinterpretation, but still, the images remain, persistent, puzzling. Imagine the artists themselves, centuries ago, dipping brushes into paint, their minds full of inspiration, dreams, and perhaps stories they heard in whispers, tales of strange lights, of visitors from distant lands or distant worlds, of knowledge that didn't fit their time. Could they have hidden clues deliberately? Or were they painting what they believed to be real, unaware of how out of place it would seem to future eyes? Art preserves not just images, but moments, fleeting glimpses into the minds and times of those who lived long before us. And sometimes, Those glimpses raise more questions than answers. But perhaps the most unsettling thought is this: what if we're the ones missing something? What if the symbols, the odd shapes, the strange objects, all meant something clear to those of the past? Knowledge lost to time, leaving us to guess at meanings that once needed no explanation. Like finding a key with no lock, a riddle missing its final line. Or maybe the paintings aren't about the future or the past, but about something timeless. A reminder that humans, across all eras, have wondered about what lies beyond, what hovers above, what truths slip just out of reach. As you lie there, breathing slow and deep, let the images fade, the canvases dissolving into darkness, brushstrokes melting into shadow. Somewhere, in galleries, in private collections, in forgotten attics, paintings rest quietly, silent, watching, holding secrets in plain sight. Next, we'll journey to places that simply vanished, entire villages that disappeared overnight, leaving nothing but questions and empty ground. But for now, close your eyes, let the colors fade, let the mysteries drift like soft clouds across your mind. Breathe in and out. The past is full of whispers. Tonight, you've heard a few. Imagine waking up to find an entire village gone. Houses empty, meals left half-eaten on wooden tables, fires still smoldering in hearths, clothes fluttering on lines, untouched, but not a single soul in sight. No signs of struggle, no footprints leading away, just silence. An eerie, suffocating silence that seems to press against your ears the longer you stand there. Close your eyes. Picture that emptiness. Imagine walking down a dirt path lined with abandoned homes, doors creaking on their hinges as the wind whispers through empty rooms. What happened here? Where did everyone go? And how could they vanish? All at once. History holds strange tales of entire communities disappearing without explanation. One of the most haunting is that of the Roanoke colony in what is now North Carolina. Over 100 settlers, men, women, and children, arrived in the late 1500s to build new lives. Years passed, and when supplies finally returned, nothing. The settlement was deserted. No bodies, no signs of violence, just a single word carved into a tree. Croatoan. Was it a clue, a desperate message, or something else entirely? Centuries later, theories abound. Native alliances, starvation, disease, but none satisfy the chilling simplicity of the scene. An entire community, erased like footprints washed away by the tide. And then there's Rio Verde, a village in Brazil. In 1923, reports surfaced of a bustling town where, overnight, over 600 residents vanished. No struggle, no warning. Radios buzzed with static. Dinner plates sat with food uneaten. Gone. Official explanations were scarce, and soon the story drifted into legend, half forgotten, whispered only as a cautionary tale. What could make hundreds of people walk away without a trace? Mass hysteria, a sudden evacuation no one recorded, or something stranger, something that defies understanding. Imagine being the last person to leave, the one who turns back for a final glance at empty streets, windows staring like hollow eyes. Did they know? Were there signs? Odd noises in the night, strange figures at the edges of the forest, lights flickering above the hills. Or was it ordinary? Until, suddenly, it wasn't. Some stories speak of natural disasters, earthquakes swallowing villages whole, floods sweeping everything away. But what about places untouched by such forces? Places where everything remains perfectly in place. except the people? What if there are things history can't or won't explain? Moments when reality bends, swallowing entire communities into silence. And then there are the more unsettling thoughts. What if the villagers never left? What if they're still there, just unseen, existing in some fold of reality we can't perceive? A shift in time, a slip between dimensions. Ideas that sound like fantasy, yet linger at the edges of scientific speculation. Could an entire population fall through some unseen crack in the fabric of existence? Or maybe the simplest explanation is the most terrifying. We just don't know. And perhaps we're not meant to. As you lie there, let the image settle. Empty houses bathed in moonlight, streets quiet under a blanket of stars, the air heavy with stories that will never be told. Somewhere, in forgotten places across the world, the earth holds secrets too deep for words. Next, we'll follow the trail of a traveler who vanished on a journey no one ever completed. A road stretching into nowhere, footsteps fading into silence. But for now, rest. Let the mystery drift like fog over empty streets. Breathe in and out. The world is vast, and sometimes it forgets. Picture a narrow road stretching into the horizon, flanked by ancient trees whose branches form a canopy overhead. The air is thick with quiet. No birdsong, no rustle of leaves, just the faint echo of your own footsteps. The road feels timeless, like it's been here forever. How many have walked this path, you wonder? And how many never came back? Now imagine this. A lone traveler sets out on a familiar route, promising to return by nightfall. Hours pass, then days. No sign of them. Search parties comb the area, calling out names that dissolve into the wind. The road is empty. No footprints, no belongings dropped along the way. Just that same silence pressing in from all sides. What happened? Did they take a wrong turn? Slip into some unseen place where roads twist into themselves and time unravels? Or was something waiting on that path? Something patient, something that doesn't leave evidence behind. History is filled with such stories, journeys that began with certainty and ended in questions. Take Ambrose Bierce, a famous American writer and war veteran. In 1913, at the age of 71, he set off for Mexico, sending letters along the way, his words sharp and lively as ever. And then, nothing. No body, no final letter. He simply vanished into the landscape. A man who once wrote of ghosts and mysteries became one himself. Or consider the tale of Ludwig Leichhardt, an explorer who ventured into Australia's vast interior. His expedition was well equipped, his route meticulously planned. And yet, his entire party disappeared. To this day, the Australian outback holds its secret, swallowing evidence beneath endless sands and shifting grasses. How does an entire group vanish without a trace? Even in more modern times, stories persist. Hikers entering dense forests, travelers on desolate highways, pilots flying into clear skies only to never land. The roads remain, the skies stay open, and yet the travelers are gone. Imagine being that traveler. The road stretches before you, familiar at first, then strange. Trees seem to shift when you're not looking. The wind carries sounds you can't quite place, footsteps that aren't yours, whispers that dissolve when you turn. Your heartbeat quickens, you keep walking, just a little farther you think, but the road never ends, or worse, it loops, the same twisted branch, the same moss-covered stone reappearing again and again. And that's when the real fear sets in. What if you're not moving forward? What if you're not moving at all? Some cultures speak of spirit roads, paths where the boundary between worlds is thin, where travelers can slip through unseen veils into places they were never meant to find. Folklore warns against traveling certain roads at night, advises carrying charms, leaving offerings. But what if it's simpler and more chilling than that? What if some places are just hungry, but not every disappearance feels sinister? There's another possibility, one equally unsettling. What if they chose not to return? What if, somewhere along that lonely road, they found something better? A world beyond ours, a chance to step out of their old life into something vast and unknowable. Could you blame them? And then there's the strangest thought of all. What if the road itself remembers every step taken, every breath drawn into its endless stretch of asphalt or dirt? Roads are ancient things. They've seen countless feet pass over them, countless stories unfold. Maybe some stories they choose to keep. As you breathe in slowly, let the road unfurl in your mind, a ribbon of grey stretching into twilight, shadows deepening at the edges. Somewhere, a traveller walks that road still. Or maybe they stopped long ago, standing in a place no map will ever show. Next, we'll discover messages carved into stone, ordinary voices from ancient times, preserved for centuries, reminding us that even the smallest marks can outlast empires. But for now, let the road fade. Let the traveler's footsteps drift into silence. Breathe in and out. The journey is long. There's no need to rush. Imagine walking through a valley at dusk, the sky painted in soft hues of lavender and gold. The ground crunches beneath your feet as you approach an ancient stone wall, cracked, weathered, covered in creeping moss. At first it seems like nothing, more than the remnants of some forgotten structure. But then, you notice them. Marks, lines and symbols, faint but deliberate, carved deep into the rock. Words, or at least, someone's attempt at preserving a thought, a feeling, a moment. You reach out, fingertips tracing the grooves, and for a fleeting second, you're connected to a person who lived centuries, perhaps millennia, before you. A stranger who stood in this very spot, holding a chisel, deciding that this message needed to last. Close your eyes. Breathe in that stillness. What did they write? Was it a declaration of love? A warning? A simple, impulsive thought, like I was here, etched into stone with the quiet hope that someone, someday, might notice. Across the world, carved messages remain, outliving empires, outlasting languages. In the deserts of Egypt, on the rocky cliffs of Scandinavia, deep within caves hidden from the sun, some are grand and official, royal decrees, religious texts, commemorations of battles. But others are wonderfully ordinary. Take the Viking runestones scattered across Scandinavia. Among tales of raids and gods, you'll find inscriptions like, Thorstein carved these runes while bored. Imagine that, a man, centuries ago, pausing from his travels to leave behind a note so human, so familiar. Boredom, it seems, transcends time. Or consider the graffiti of ancient Pompeii, preserved under volcanic ash. Walls that once echoed with the bustle of Roman life now bear messages like, Marcus loves Julia, or we drank here, we laughed, petty insults, jokes, declarations of affection. Voices from a world that turned to ash, their words surviving longer than they ever imagined. And then there's the sobering side. On prison walls, travelers' shelters, places of desperation. Carvings reveal fears and hopes, scratches counting days, pleas for mercy, farewells no one would hear. Ordinary people, facing extraordinary circumstances, choosing to carve their final words into something that might endure. Why do we do it? Why the urge to mock stone, to leave behind traces of ourselves? Perhaps it's a defiance of time, a small, stubborn act against the vastness of existence. Or maybe it's simpler, a hope that we won't be forgotten, that someone will know we were here. Imagine standing in a cave, torchlight flickering across, ancient handprints lining the walls, thousands of years old, some small like a child's. Were they marking territory, celebrating a hunt, or just playing? The why might be lost, but the presence remains. Those handprints aren't just marks, they're greetings across time. Hello, I lived, I mattered, and isn't that what we all want in the end? To be remembered, to know that our fleeting lives left some ripple in the vast ocean of history. But here's the haunting thought. How many messages have we missed? Stones eroded by rain, covered by moss, buried beneath shifting earth. How many voices spoke, only for their words to vanish? And among those that survive, how many do we misunderstand? We gaze at symbols, guess at meanings, project our own stories onto marks whose true purposes are forever out of reach. Yet, there's comfort in the attempt, in the knowledge that, across ages and continents, people have shared this simple desire: to be seen. As you breathe deeply, let the image settle. A stone wall under a starlit sky, carvings shimmering faintly in the dark. Words carved by hands long gone. Echoes of laughter, fear, love, all preserved in silent rock. Next, we'll explore the tale of an unlikely hero, a servant whose unnoticed actions changed the fate of a kingdom, proving that sometimes history's greatest impacts come from those who stand in the shadows. But for now, rest. Let the voices fade into the stones, their stories mingling with your breath, in and out. Time moves on, but the marks remain. Imagine a grand palace, walls gleaming with polished stone, and floors echoing with the soft shuffle of silk-clad courtiers. The air is thick with the scent of burning incense, the distant notes of a harp carrying through marble halls. Nobles move gracefully, their words carefully measured, their eyes darting with ambition. In the midst of this opulence, unnoticed, walks a servant, head bowed, steps quiet, blending into the background like furniture or shadow. Few know their name, fewer care. But sometimes, it's the ones no one notices who hold the threads that unravel or save an entire kingdom. Close your eyes. Imagine that servant. Calloused hands carrying trays, polishing gold that isn't theirs, listening to conversations meant for more important ears. They hear things, see things, and sometimes they act, quietly, swiftly, changing history without fanfare or reward. History. Books often celebrate kings and generals, the ones with crowns and swords. But for every great ruler remembered, how many unknown hands worked in silence to steer the course of fate? Take the story of Shu Shu, an advisor during China's turbulent Three Kingdoms period. While many know the names of warlords and emperors, few recall Shu Shu's mother, a humble woman whose letter changed an entire battlefield. Held hostage by political forces, she sent a secret message urging her son to act with honor rather than loyalty to corrupt leaders. That quiet personal plea shifted allegiances, altered strategies, and in the ripples of those choices, battles were won, kingdoms reshaped, or consider the tale of a nameless stable boy in medieval Europe. According to whispered legends, he overheard a plot to poison the king's wine. No one would believe a servant's word, so he drank the goblet himself. Hours later, as he lay dying, the truth became undeniable. The king lived. The servant died. His name, lost to time, survives. Only in the margins of a faded journal. Why do these stories matter? Because they remind us that heroism isn't always grand. It doesn't always come with trumpets or parades. Sometimes it's quiet, invisible, a choice made in a fleeting moment that no one sees, except history, waiting patiently to tell the tale. Imagine being that servant, knowing the weight of your choice. No glory promised, no songs sung in your name. Just the knowledge that, for one moment, you held the power to alter fate, and you chose to act. There's something humbling in that thought. How many lives have been saved, changed, shaped by people we'll never know? And here's the unsettling truth. For every servant who saved a king, how many were silenced? How many warnings ignored? How many quiet sacrifices buried beneath layers of time? We read about rulers, wars, treaties, but not the hands that sealed letters, the messengers who rode through storms, the cooks who tasted meals with steady resolve, knowing what might happen. Yet without them, how different might the world be? Perhaps that's the nature of history. We remember the loudest voices, the tallest monuments, but beneath them lies a foundation built by countless, forgotten hands. Quiet, patient, enduring. As you lie there, breathing slow and steady, let the image settle. A candlelit hallway, footsteps echoing as a shadow moves with purpose. No applause, no witness. Just a single decision, made in silence, shaping everything that followed. Next, we'll journey to the life of a forgotten poet, someone whose words once lost now echo across time, reminding us that sometimes art survives where names fade. But for now, rest. Let the palace fade, the servant's footsteps dissolve into darkness. In and out. Even the quietest acts leave ripples. Let them wash over you. Imagine an old, weathered book. Its leather cover cracked, pages yellowed and fragile. The ink inside faded, but still legible. You open it carefully, the paper sighing under your fingers. And there, beneath a name you don't recognize, are words that stop you. Words that feel like they were written just for you. Thoughts captured centuries ago, echoing across time to reach this moment, this breath, this heartbeat. Who was this poet? Why do their words feel so familiar? And yet, their name is lost to history. Close your eyes. Picture a small room, a flickering candle casting shadows on rough walls. A figure leans over a desk, quill scratching at parchment, ink staining fingertips. The world outside is distant. The poet's entire universe contained in the flow of words, the shaping of thoughts into something that might last. Not for fame, not for glory, just to speak, to capture fleeting feelings before they vanish like smoke in the wind. History is filled with poets whose names we celebrate. Shakespeare, Rumi, Levi. But for every name remembered, countless others have slipped through the cracks of time. Voices that once sang of love, loss, wonder, now silenced, their pages burned, lost, or left unread in forgotten corners of old libraries. Take, for example, the works of Sappho. Most know her name, yet the majority of her poetry has crumbled away, mere fragments remaining. Imagine the verses we'll never hear, the emotions forever lost. Or think of the anonymous poets behind medieval ballads, songs that survived through oral tradition, but whose creators remain shadows, their identities dissolved into the collective voice of time. And then there are those rediscovered by chance. In a remote attic, a tattered notebook surfaces, buried in desert sands, clay tablets, emerge etched with verses longing to be heard. Who were these poets, farmers, soldiers, lovers whose words outlived their names, carried forward by the stubborn endurance of language? There's a strange magic in poetry. Unlike monuments or grand battles, poems are intimate, small bursts of humanity distilled into words. They capture things that history often overlooks: the ache of a farewell, the warmth of sunlight on a lover's face, the restless hunger for meaning. And that's why it lingers. Because long after kingdoms crumble and names fade from stone, words stay. Not all, of course, many vanish, but some survive, passed hand to hand, whispered, copied, forgotten, then found again. Imagine a poet sitting beneath a tree centuries ago, watching the same moon that shines above you tonight. They write of longing, of hope, of the fleeting nature of existence. They wonder perhaps if anyone will ever read their words, if they'll matter. And now, lying here, breathing slowly, you do read them. You hear them. Across time, you listen. What drives someone to write, knowing they may never be known? Perhaps it's the same reason we speak into the wind or laugh when no one's around. An instinct to express, to connect, even if that connection spans centuries. And here's the haunting beauty. Every poem you read from the past was written by someone who lived, breathed, dreamed, and is now dust. But in those words, for a moment, they live again. Their thoughts awaken in your mind. Their emotions stir your heart. It's a kind of immortality, fragile but real. As you breathe in, let the words fade like smoke, dissipating into the night sky. The poet's candle flickers out, the pages close, but the echo remains. Soft, persistent, timeless. Next, we'll uncover the smallest of relics, a child's toy found in ancient ruins, reminding us that even the tiniest objects can carry the weight of forgotten lives. But for now, rest. Let the verses drift like waves lapping at a quiet shore, in and out. Words may fade, but the feeling lingers. Let it carry you. Imagine standing in the middle of an ancient ruin. The stone walls are crumbling, the ground littered with broken pottery and fragments of a world long gone. Wind whistles through empty archways, carrying the faint scent of dust and time. You fool, crouch down, brushing away dirt and debris, expecting to find more shards of plates or tools. But instead, your hand uncovers something unexpected. A toy, small, simple, crafted from clay or wood, worn smooth by tiny fingers long ago. Maybe it's a little figurine of an animal, or a spinning top carved with care. And suddenly, the vast weight of history narrows to a single, tender moment. A child sitting cross-legged on this very ground, playing, laughing, just like children do today. Close your eyes, picture that child. Imagine the joy, the imagination sparking as the toy dances across the dirt floor. No kings, no wars, no grand historical events, just a child in a fleeting moment of happiness, unaware that thousands of years later, someone like you would be holding their toy, wondering about the life that once surrounded it. We often think of history in terms of the big things, monuments, battles, rulers. But sometimes the smallest artifacts carry the heaviest weight, because they remind us that the people of the past weren't just names in textbooks or statues on pedestals. They were human. They laughed. They cried. They played. Archaeologists have found dolls in ancient Egyptian tombs. Their painted eyes faded but still recognizable. In Roman ruins, small lead soldiers lie forgotten. Miniature armies once marched across imaginary battlefields by tiny hands. Even in the depths of Viking burial sites, simple wooden animals have been uncovered, worn from years of play before being placed beside a child for their final journey. What makes these discoveries so powerful? Perhaps it's the universality, the way a toy bridges time. You can hold it and instantly understand its purpose, feel the connection to someone whose world was otherwise so different. Empires rise and fall, but the joy of a child spinning atop, making it wobble and dance, that's eternal. And then you wonder, what became of that child? Did they grow up to be a farmer, a warrior, a storyteller? Did they survive the plagues, the famines, the wars that swept across their land? Or did their life end young, their toy placed beside them in grief-stricken ritual? You'll never know. The toy is all that remains, a fragment of a life, a sliver of a story. But perhaps that's enough, because in holding it, in imagining the laughter that once echoed through these ruins, you breathe life back into a forgotten moment. There's another layer to it, the fleeting nature of what survives. How many other toys were lost, broken, dissolved into dust? Why this one? Why did this tiny object endure while palaces crumbled, libraries burned, and names faded? It's humbling to think about. The things we believe will last, grand buildings, stone monuments, often fall. Yet, something as simple as a child's toy discarded in a corner can outlive it all. There's a quiet poetry in that. A reminder that what matters to us in the moment might not be what history remembers. Sometimes, it's the ordinary that becomes extraordinary. As you lie there, breathing slow and deep, let the image linger, a tiny figurine cradled in your palm, the faint warmth of imagined laughter curling around you like a soft breeze. The ruins fade. The child's voice dissolves into the night, but that fleeting connection, the feeling of shared humanity, remains. Next, we'll step into places where nature itself shifted, swallowing entire landscapes, lakes that vanished overnight, lands erased as if they'd never existed. But for now, rest. Let the toy slip from your mind's grasp, drifting away like a memory half remembered, in and out. Even the smallest things can hold entire worlds. Let that thought carry you. Imagine waking up to the familiar sounds of waves gently lapping against the shore, the scent of fresh water carried on the morning breeze. For generations, this lake has been the heart of the village. Children laughing as they splash along the banks, fishermen casting nets in the early dawn light, elders sitting quietly, watching the ripples dance across the surface. And then, it's gone. Overnight, an entire body of water vanishes. Boats rest awkwardly on cracked earth, fish lie gasping in the mud, and silence settles where waves once sang. You stand at the edge of what used to be, staring out over empty land, dust swirling where there should be water. How does a lake disappear? And more unsettling, why? Close your eyes. Breathe in the stillness of that absence. Feel the weight of something missing. Like a dream you reach for upon waking, only to find empty air. Throughout history, landscapes have shifted in ways that seem impossible. One day a village thrives by a lake or river, and the next, it faces dry earth and unanswered questions. Take Lake Peigneur in Louisiana. In 1980, what should have been an ordinary day turned into something out of a nightmare. A drilling accident, tapped into an underground salt mine beneath the lake, and within moments, a swirling vortex formed, sucking in barges, trees, entire buildings. Water drained into the earth, leaving behind a muddy void where a vast lake had existed just hours before. Can you imagine standing there, watching as the world beneath your feet collapses? Watching nature swallow what human hands took years to build. But not all vanishings come with chaos and noise. Some are quiet, subtle. In Bolivia, Lake Pupo, once the country's second largest lake, dried away under the relentless sun and shifting climate. Villagers who had relied on its waters for generations awoke to an empty horizon. Boats sat, stranded on cracked earth, their hulls creaking in the wind, silent monuments to what once was. And then there are the stories that defy explanation. Lakes that vanish overnight without warning, no obvious cause. In parts of Siberia, entire ponds have disappeared, swallowed by sinkholes that open without sound or fury. Locals tell tales of spirits reclaiming the land, of cursed waters best left alone. Science searches for answers, underground rivers, shifting tectonic plates, but some places resist understanding, their mysteries buried as deeply as the earth itself. What if the land remembers? What if, beneath the surface, forces we can't see shift and breathe, indifferent to the lives above? We build homes, plant trees, create maps with solid lines and names. But the earth doesn't care about our certainties. It moves. It changes. Sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. Imagine standing on what was once the lake bed. The ground cracked and parched beneath your feet. The air feels different, heavier, quieter. You wonder about the fish that swam here yesterday, the laughter that echoed across, the water. Gone, just like that. And you realize, landscapes aren't permanent, nothing is. And yet, there's a strange beauty in the impermanence. The knowledge that the world is alive, shifting in ways we may never fully grasp. It reminds us of our smallness, of how fleeting and fragile our place is in the grand sweep of time. Perhaps that's why these disappearances haunt us, not just because they defy explanation, but because they challenge the illusion of stability. If a lake can vanish overnight, what else can? As you breathe in and out, let the image settle. A once glimmering expanse of water, now a barren stretch of earth beneath a vast, indifferent sky. The wind stirs dust into the air, carrying whispers of what was and what's gone. Next, we'll explore erased cities, places that appeared on ancient maps only to vanish from both land and memory, raising the question, how do entire civilizations slip away unnoticed? But for now, rest. Let the waves fade, the empty horizon stretch out before you. In and out. The earth moves. Let it carry you. Imagine holding an ancient map in your hands. The parchment is rough, the edges worn and torn by time. The ink faded, but still legible. As you trace the lines of coastlines and mountains, you notice something peculiar. A city marked boldly, its name etched with certainty, surrounded by symbols of trade routes and bustling marketplaces. This place was important. It was known. But then, you realize something unsettling. You've never heard of it. No modern map shows it. No history book mentions it. It's as if the city never existed at all. Close your eyes. Picture that city. Imagine the streets, filled with merchants calling out their wares, children running through crowded alleys, towers gleaming in the sunlight. Thousands of lives intertwined in a place that, by all modern accounts, simply isn't there anymore. How do entire cities disappear? And more troubling, why are some erased so completely that even memory refuses to hold them? Throughout history, maps have recorded places we can no longer find. Cities that were once vibrant hubs, now lost to time, or something more deliberate. Take the case of Quivira, a city sought by Spanish explorers in the 16th century, rumored to be filled with riches beyond imagination. Expeditions set out, convinced of its reality, yet no trace was ever found. Was it myth, misdirection, or was it once real, swallowed by nature or quietly removed from record? Then there's Tanis, a thriving Egyptian city that rivaled Thebes in grandeur. For centuries, it was forgotten, its name fading from texts, its existence doubted. It wasn't until the 20th century that archaeologists stumbled upon its ruins, buried beneath layers of sand and silence, a reminder that what's lost isn't always gone, it just waits. And sometimes, the erasure seems intentional. Why would a city be removed from records? Wars can wipe out populations, yes. Natural disasters can bury towns beneath ash, flood, then beneath lakes. But there are darker possibilities. Rulers rewriting history to erase enemies. Entire cultures wiped from maps to consolidate power. Imagine living in a city one day, thriving, bustling, and waking up to find that, to the world beyond, you don't exist. Your home, your people, deleted from the narrative. Ancient texts speak of Ubar, the so-called Atlantis of the Sands, in Arabia. For centuries, it was dismissed as legend until satellite images revealed traces of roads converging in the empty quarter of the desert, leading to what seemed to be ruins. A city, once vibrant, now buried beneath shifting dunes. Was it swallowed by the earth? Or was it hidden deliberately by those who wanted it forgotten? And then there are the stranger tales. Maps depicting lands and cities that vanish without explanation, appearing in one century's records only to be absent in the next. Are they mistakes, myths, or evidence of how fragile memory is? How easily places and lives can slip through history's cracks? Imagine standing in the center of such a forgotten city, now reduced to scattered stones and whispers. You close your eyes and try to hear the echoes, the chatter of marketplaces, the clang of blacksmiths' hammers, the soft hum of daily life. All of it gone. And you wonder, who were they? Did they know their world would be forgotten? Or did they believe, like most of us do, that their city, their lives, would endure? It's unsettling to think how easily the world can move on. Names erased, roads covered by forests, entire civilizations fading until they become nothing more than a footnote, or less. And here's the most haunting thought. What if some of these cities weren't just lost, but hidden, covered not by time or nature, but by intention, kept from us for reasons we'll never understand? As you breathe slowly, let the image settle. A vast plain under a twilight sky, scattered stones glinting faintly in the fading light. Somewhere beneath your feet lies a city no one remembers, lives unlived, stories untold, and the map, the only record that it was ever real. Next, we'll step onto ancient battlefields, places where thousands fought and fell, only for their stories to vanish into dust, their victories and losses forgotten. But for now, rest. Let the streets of those erased cities dissolve into darkness, in and out. Some places are lost, others simply choose to hide. Imagine standing on an open field under a heavy, grey sky. The air is still, eerily quiet, save for the faint rustling of grass swaying gently in the breeze. There are no monuments, no plaques, no signs that anything significant ever happened here. Just empty land stretching out in all directions. And yet, if you close your eyes and listen closely, you can almost hear it. The clash of steel, the shouts of warriors, the final fleeting gasps of those who fell. Somewhere beneath your feet lies a battlefield, one the world has forgotten. No records in history books, no songs to commemorate the fallen, no victory, speeches echoing through time, just silence. How many battles were fought here? How many lives lost, only for no one to remember? History loves to glorify wars, epic tales of conquest, noble causes, grand armies marching toward destiny. But what about the battles that slip through the cracks? The skirmishes deemed too small to record, the conflicts erased by victors rewriting history. For every war we know, countless others remain shadows, their stories lost to time's relentless march. Take, for instance, the Battle of Teutoburg Forest, once a defining moment for the Roman Empire. 3 legions, thousands of soldiers ambushed and slaughtered in dense woodland. For years, historians debated its exact location, the forest reclaiming the blood-soaked ground, hiding the bones beneath layers of soil and silence. When remnants were finally discovered, they revealed a horrifying truth. History doesn't always care to remember failure. And yet, that was a recorded battle, one we at least recovered. What of those we never will? Somewhere out there are fields, where thousands fell, their blood soaking into the earth, their names erased, villages burned, armies crushed, all evidence swallowed by nature. Maybe a farmer plows the land today, unaware that beneath the soil lie rusted swords, shattered shields, and bones turned to dust. A child plays among the wildflowers, never knowing. They're running across ground once soaked in fear and fury. And the reasons for these forgotten battles, sometimes it's shame, leaders erasing defeats to preserve pride. Sometimes it's neglect, chroniclers focusing on victories, letting smaller conflicts fade. And sometimes it's deliberate, wars fought in secret, alliances broken in the shadows, blood spilled away from the eyes of history. There's an unsettling idea that lingers. What if some battles were never meant to be remembered? Whispers of conflicts between kingdoms that no longer exist. Cultures wiped clean so thoroughly that even their wars are dust. People lived, fought, died, and the world moved on. Then there are the stranger tales, legends of armies that vanished entirely. Like the Persian force said to have marched into the Egyptian desert, thousands strong, only to disappear without a trace. No bones, no weapons, nothing but endless dunes swallowing every clue. Was it a sandstorm? A trick of the desert? Or something more mysterious? Something that defies explanation? And that's the haunting part. The earth remembers, even when we don't. Bones buried deep, metal corroding into the soil, echoes of battle cries caught in the wind. These fields, forests, and deserts are vast cemeteries without headstones, silent witnesses to human folly and fury. As you breathe slowly, let the field stretch out in your mind, empty, quiet, peaceful now. But beneath the surface lies another story, one you'll never fully hear, one no one will. Time has sealed it shut, and history has turned the page. Next, we'll journey to places of rest that hold no names, tombs forgotten, graves unmarked, where those who once mattered to someone now lie beneath layers of earth and indifference. But for now, breathe in the stillness. Let the battles fade into the ground, swallowed by time. In and out. Not everything leaves a mark. Not everything wants to be remembered. Imagine walking through a quiet field at dusk, the sky painted in shades of deep purple and fading gold. The ground beneath your feet feels soft, the air cool against your skin. There are no signs, no stones, no markers to tell you where you are, just open land and a strange heaviness, as if the earth itself is holding its breath. You stop, stand still, and that's when you realize this isn't just a field. Beneath the grass, beneath the soil, lie countless graves, bodies buried long ago, their names lost, their stories faded into silence. People who once breathed, laughed, cried, now forgotten. No epitaphs, no flowers, no one left to remember. What does it mean to be forgotten so completely? To have lived a life filled with moments and memories, only to vanish into the folds of time, leaving no trace behind. History is dotted with grand tombs, pyramids reaching toward the sky, ornate sarcophagi carved with names meant to last forever. Pharaohs, emperors, kings, people who feared being forgotten and built monuments to defy oblivion. And yet, for every ruler buried beneath stone splendor, countless others lie in unmarked soil, their lives deemed too small for memory. Consider the mass graves of ancient battlefields, soldiers who fought and fell, their bodies hurriedly buried to avoid disease. No markers, no records, just men, young and old, swallowed by the ground. Who mourned them? Did anyone stand over the fresh earth, whispering a final farewell before walking away? Or were they simply covered up and forgotten? Then there are the paupers' graves, scattered outside the walls of once thriving cities. People without wealth, without family, their resting places unmarked, lost as towns expanded, roads paved over their bones. Imagine lying beneath a bustling street, cars roaring overhead, lives rushing by, while you remain still, unseen beneath layers of progress and concrete. And what of the tombs we do find, but can't identify? Archaeologists uncover skeletons adorned with jewelry, buried with care, yet the names remain mysteries. A young woman, buried with intricate beads. Was she a priestess? A beloved daughter? A leader whose memory didn't survive? We can reconstruct bones, test DNA, guess at diet and age. But names vanish so easily. There's something deeply unsettling and strangely comforting about that. Names fade, stories dissolve, but the fact that someone lived, that remains. Bones endure when words don't. Silence becomes their legacy. And then there are the forgotten tombs that weren't meant to be forgotten. Royal crypts sealed and lost through shifting landscapes, temples buried beneath volcanic ash. Entire necropolises hidden beneath modern cities, waiting, patient, as time erases their markers. Somewhere out there, beneath jungles, deserts, and oceans, lie graves untouched for millennia, lives locked in darkness, far from the eyes of the living. And here's the strangest thought. What if someone, centuries from now, stands above where you lie? Will they wonder about your name? Your life? Will they feel that same shiver, that fleeting connection to someone long gone? Or will your bones, like so many before, be dust, carried by wind, forgotten by time? As you breathe in slowly, let the weight of that thought settle. The ground beneath you, the sky above. How many have seen it before you? How many lie beneath, remembered by no one, yet still here? Part of the earth, part of the world that moves on without them. Next, we'll explore the final mysteries, the stories so strange, so inexplicable, they make us question everything we think we know about history and ourselves. But for now, rest. Let the names fade. Let the silence wrap around you like a blanket, in and out. Not all stories are told, not all lives are remembered, but for a moment, you remembered them. Imagine sitting by a fire under a star-filled sky. The flames flicker, casting warm light against the darkness, and somewhere beyond the glow, the world feels vast and unknowable. An old storyteller begins to speak, their voice low and steady. There are stories, stories that don't fit, stories that shouldn't exist. Tales passed down through generations, whispered across continents, recorded in ancient texts, and dismissed by modern minds. Events that defy logic, artifacts that rewrite timelines, accounts so strange they leave us questioning everything we know. Close your eyes, breathe in the cool night air. Let the fire's warmth soak into your skin as the stories unfold. Some are unsettling, some are beautiful. All are mysteries. Take the case of the Antikythera mechanism, a device pulled from a shipwreck off the coast of Greece in the early 1900s. At first glance, it looked like a lump of corroded metal, but beneath the layers of rust lay gears that turned with astonishing precision. Scientists now believe it was an ancient analog computer, capable of predicting astronomical events with a complexity not seen again until centuries later. How? How did people over 2,000 years ago build something so advanced, only for that knowledge to vanish? Then there's the Dropa stones, allegedly discovered in a remote cave in China, carved with spirals and strange markings. Some claim they tell the story of beings from the stars, visitors who came long before recorded history began. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss the idea, but the stones remain, their symbols unreadable, their purpose unknown. And what of the Voynich manuscript? A book filled with bizarre illustrations of plants that don't exist, written in a language no one can decode. Linguists, cryptographers, and historians have tried and failed to unlock its secrets. Who wrote it? Why? Was it a hoax, a code, or something else entirely? Some mysteries aren't objects, they're events, like the dancing plague of 1518, when dozens of people in Strasbourg began dancing uncontrollably in the streets. Not for hours, not for days, for weeks. Many collapsed. Some died, no one knows why. Mass hysteria? Poisoned grain? Or something stranger? Or the Tao's hum? A persistent, low-frequency sound heard by residents of a small town in New Mexico. No source found, no explanation given. Just a sound, humming in the background, driving some to the edge of madness, leaving others oblivious. These aren't stories born of fantasy. They're recorded, studied, real, and yet they don't fit. They sit in the margins of history like smudges on an otherwise neat page. Impossible to ignore, impossible to explain. Why do these mysteries unsettle us so deeply? Maybe because they remind us that for all our knowledge, we understand so little. We crave explanations, answers, closure. But history isn't always neat. The past holds secrets that resist discovery, truths buried so deeply they may never be unearthed. Or perhaps, the unsettling part isn't that we don't know. It's the suspicion that some do, that knowledge has been lost or hidden, that for every revealed truth, there are 10 more kept in shadows, and yet there's wonder in the unknown. Not all mysteries are frightening. Some are invitations to explore, to question, to imagine. The world is vast. Time is deeper than we can comprehend. Who's to say what truths lie waiting just beyond reach? As you breathe in slowly, let the firelight fade in your mind's eye. The storyteller's voice grows softer, blending with the night. The stars overhead blink, ancient light traveling across time to reach you. Somewhere out there, out in the vastness of history and space, answers exist. Or maybe just more questions. Next, we'll uncover legends of time slips, moments when people claim to have stepped into the past, witnessing what should be long gone. But for now, rest. Let the mysteries swirl and drift like smoke on the breeze. In and out. Not everything is meant to be understood, and that's okay. Imagine walking down a quiet street on a warm afternoon. The air is calm, the sky above painted in soft blues and fading gold. You glance at your watch. Nothing unusual, just another day. But as you continue, something shifts. The buildings around you seem older. The cars vanish. The sounds of modern life, phones ringing, engines humming, fade away. And then you notice the people, dressed in clothes from another era, speaking in ways that feel both familiar and foreign. You stop, look around. Where are you? No, not where, when. Close your eyes. Feel the air change, thicker, heavier with history. The world feels off, not in a dangerous way, but like you've stepped into a dream layered over reality. You turn around to retrace your steps, and the street you came from isn't there anymore. Time, it seems, has folded, and you've slipped through. Throughout history, there have been stories, quiet, unsettling accounts of people who claim to have stumbled into the past. Not through machines or science fiction portals, but through ordinary places, ordinary days, suddenly turned extraordinary. Take the case of two English women, Charlotte Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain. In 1901, while visiting the gardens of Versailles, they reported seeing people dressed in 18th century clothing, hearing faint strains of old-fashioned music. They described a woman sketching, later believed to be Marie Antoinette herself. When they looked again, everything was gone. Dismissed by many as imagination, their detailed account still lingers as one of history's strangest temporal mysteries. Or consider the story of a man in Liverpool, England, who in the early 2000s stepped into a street lined with old-fashioned storefronts. People walked past in outdated clothing. A shop displayed goods from decades before. Confused, he blinked, and everything snapped back to modern reality. Hallucination? A trick of the mind? Or did he truly glimpse another time? What causes these experiences? Science suggests explanations. Lapses in memory, the brain misfiring, vivid daydreams mistaken for reality. Skeptics call them coincidences, tricks of perception. And yet, the consistency is haunting. People across different cultures, different eras, describe the same strange sensation, a shift, the air thickening, colors dulling, sounds warping, and then, without warning, they're somewhere else, or someone else. And it's not just the past. Some stories speak of glimpses into the future, people seeing buildings that don't exist yet, events that haven't happened. Are these just accidents of imagination? Or is time more fluid than we think? What if time isn't a straight line? What if it folds, layers overlapping like pages in a book? And occasionally, just occasionally, the pages stick together, two times, coexisting, and someone, maybe you, maybe anyone, slips through that fold for a heartbeat. The thought is both thrilling and unsettling. Could you be walking through a place right now where someone from the past is seeing you as a ghost? A strange figure in bizarre clothes, appearing for a moment in their world before fading away? Maybe time slips both ways, us peering into their lives, them glimpsing ours. Two moments touching, then parting. And if that's true, what does it say about time itself? Maybe it's not something that passes. Maybe it just is. All moments, all at once. Layers of existence waiting for the right conditions. A quiet street, a distracted mind, a certain angle of sunlight for the veil to thin. As you breathe in, let the idea settle. You could, at any moment, step through an invisible fold and find yourself somewhere else entirely, not in a story, not in a dream, but there, standing on cobblestones where horse-drawn carriages pass by, watching gas lamps flicker, hearing voices calling out in languages now dead, or in accents that seem distant and strange, and then blink. Back to now, back to here, leaving you to wonder if it ever happened, or if it was just your mind playing tricks. But deep down, you know what you felt. Sometimes the world isn't as solid as it seems. Next, we'll uncover tales of objects that seem to defy time, artifacts found where they shouldn't be, challenging everything we thought we knew about history. But for now, rest. Let the streets of forgotten times dissolve into the dark, in and out. Time is vast. Let it carry you. Imagine standing in a museum, the room cool and quiet, footsteps echoing softly against polished floors. Glass cases line the walls, each holding relics from the past, ceramic bowls, rusted swords, faded tapestries. History, neat and orderly, labels with dates and descriptions, everything in its proper place. But then, you reach a display that doesn't make sense, an object that shouldn't be there, a carving older than the civilization that supposedly made it, a piece of technology from a time when humans barely knew how to shape stone. You read the label again, heart skipping a beat. Impossible, you think. And yet, there it is. Close your eyes. Feel the chill in the air, the hum of something ancient pressing against the edges of understanding. What if history isn't what we think? What if the past is deeper, stranger than we dare imagine? Throughout the world, objects have been found that defy explanation. Artifacts so out of place, they challenge the very foundations of history. Scientists call them parts, out-of-place artifacts. To some, they're mysteries worth exploring. To others, they're things best ignored. Take the London hammer. Discovered in Texas in the 1930s, this hammer-like tool was encased in rock said to be over 100 million years old. How does a man-made object end up inside stone formed long before humans were supposed to exist? Geological anomaly? Hoax? Or something else entirely? Then there's the Coso artifact, a small object found in California encased in mineral deposits, millions of years old. Inside, what appeared to be a piece of metal resembling a spark plug. Technology from the modern era trapped in ancient rock. Experts argue, debate, dismiss, but no one truly explains. And what about the Baghdad battery, clay? Jars from ancient Mesopotamia that, when reconstructed, seem capable of generating a small electric charge. Some say they were used for electroplating. Others scoff at the idea. But the question lingers. How did people thousands of years ago know how to make electricity, if that's what it was at all? It's not just tools and devices. Ancient maps show lands that shouldn't have been known. Carvings depict what some claim to be advanced technology, figures holding objects resembling modern devices, flying machines etched into temple walls. Coincidence, imagination, or fragmented memories passed down from civilizations lost to time? Consider the Piri Reis map, detailed centuries before Antarctica was officially discovered, seemingly outlining parts of the continent beneath the ice. How? Forgotten explorers, knowledge passed down from an older, vanished world. And then there's the Voynich manuscript, a book filled with unknown symbols, strange plants, and star charts that don't match our sky. No one can read it. No one knows why it was made. Yet, it exists, holding its secrets close, defying every attempt to decode its purpose. What do these artifacts mean? Are they remnants of forgotten civilizations? Evidence of timelines more complex than we understand? Some theorists whisper of advanced cultures wiped out by a catastrophe: Atlantis, Mu, Lemuria. Others suggest time travelers leaving behind fragments of future knowledge. And a few wonder if humanity isn't the first intelligent species to walk this earth. What if history repeats? Civilizations rise, flourish, reach heights beyond imagination, and fall, leaving behind traces so sparse they become myth. Stones shaped by hands long turn to dust, devices buried beneath layers of earth and time. Or maybe we're just seeing patterns where none exist. The human brain loves stories, loves to connect dots, even when they shouldn't connect. But some mysteries resist dismissal. They linger, they itch at the edges of certainty. As you breathe in slowly, let the image settle, a glass case holding an object no one can explain. People walk past, glancing briefly, moving on. But you stop, you stare, you wonder. Somewhere out there, beneath, deserts, oceans, mountains, more artifacts wait, hidden, patient, unfazed by human timelines. And you think, what else lies beneath our feet? What truths remain buried, waiting for someone curious enough to dig? Next, we'll descend into hidden tunnels and underground worlds, vast networks carved into the earth, their creators unknown, their purpose lost. But for now, rest. Let the artifacts fade into shadow, in and out. Some things endure beyond explanation. Let that thought carry you. Imagine standing at the entrance of a dark tunnel, the air cool and damp against your skin. The opening is just wide enough to slip through, rough stone walls beckoning into shadow. You switch on a flashlight, its beam cutting through the darkness. But the tunnel stretches on, far beyond what you can see. Step after step, the temperature drops, the silence deepens, and a strange question begins to echo in your mind. Who built this? And why? Close your eyes. Picture walking through a passage, carved long before anyone can remember. No signs, no markings, just endless stone, chiseled by hands now turned to dust. You breathe in the earthy air, the scent of age and forgotten things filling your lungs. The deeper you go, the more the world above feels like a distant dream, and then, as the darkness presses in, another thought creeps forward. What if you're not alone down here? Beneath the surface of our world lies another world, one built by people whose names are lost to time. Vast networks of tunnels stretch across continents, some connecting places hundreds of miles apart. Many serve obvious purposes: mines, catacombs, ancient escape routes. But then there are the others, the ones that shouldn't exist. Take the extensive tunnels beneath Derinkuyu in Turkey. Discovered by accident when a man knocked down a wall in his basement, what lay beyond was astonishing. An entire underground city capable of housing thousands, multiple levels, air shafts, storage rooms, even a school carved into solid rock. No machines, no modern tools, just determination and time. But here's the question that lingers. Why? To hide from invaders? To survive some ancient catastrophe? Or was there something deeper? Something we'll never fully grasp? And Derinkuyu isn't alone. Across Europe, especially in Bavaria and Austria, archaeologists have found Erdstalls, narrow, winding tunnels with no clear purpose. Too small for storage, too impractical for travel. No records explain them. No artifacts offer clues. Just dark passageways carved with care, leading nowhere. Why would people go to such lengths to carve into the earth? Fear, faith, necessity. Some believe these tunnels were sanctuaries, refuges from war or climate disasters. Others suggest they served religious or ritualistic purposes, gateways to underworld beliefs. And then there are the stranger theories. Secret transportation systems from a forgotten civilization. Remnants of a lost global network connecting ancient cultures. Or, more unsettling, the idea that people weren't hiding from something above, but from something below. Folklore from various cultures speaks of underground beings, spirits, creatures, or entire civilizations beneath our feet. Just stories, most say. But standing in those tunnels, surrounded by cold stone and silence, you begin to wonder. And here's the strangest part. Some tunnels are perfectly preserved. No cave-ins, no natural collapse. As if something maintains them. Or perhaps no one's been in them long enough for nature to reclaim them. Imagine traveling deep underground, flashlight flickering, heart pounding. You brush your hand against the walls, feeling the tool marks. Tiny grooves from countless hours of work. Were those hands guided by fear, hope, orders from someone who knew something others didn't? The deeper you go, the more the weight of the earth presses down. You hear your breath, your footsteps, and nothing else. And then you reach a dead end, or so you think. A faint draft suggests otherwise. A hidden passage? A deeper chamber? You hesitate. Part of you wants to turn back. Part of you needs to see where it leads. But what if some doors are better left closed? As you breathe slowly, let the darkness settle around you. The imagined chill of those underground halls wrapping around your mind. Above, the world moves on. Sunlight, cities, laughter. But beneath, the earth keeps its secrets. Silent, patient. Some tunnels lead nowhere. Others might lead to answers we're not ready for. Next, we'll look at ancient calendars predicting strange patterns, timelines that suggest history moves in cycles more profound than we understand. But for now, rest. Let the tunnels fade, their dark corridors dissolving into dream, in and out. Beneath the surface, mysteries wait. Let them sleep. Imagine holding an ancient stone tablet, its surface etched with symbols you can't understand. The carvings are precise, deliberate, each line and curve crafted with a purpose long forgotten. You run your fingers over the grooves, feeling the weight of time pressing against your skin. These aren't just markings, they're a message about time itself, about the cycles of the world, the rise and fall of everything we think is permanent. Close your eyes. Picture the people who carved these symbols, gathered under a starlit sky, watching the heavens, tracking the slow dance of the moon and sun. How did they know so much? Their calendars weren't simple tools to count days. They were warnings, predictions, maps of time that stretched far beyond their own lives. And some of those maps point to moments that should terrify us. Moments like now. The most famous of these is the Maya long count calendar. For years, people whispered about its end date, December 21st, 2012, interpreted by some as a prediction of the world's end. When the day passed without catastrophe, the fear faded. Just superstition, they said. But what if we misunderstood? What if it wasn't about destruction, but about cycles, endings leading to beginnings, history moving in loops rather than lines? The Maya weren't alone. Ancient Hindu texts speak of yugas, vast epochs cycling through creation, decay, and renewal. We're said to be in the Kali Yuga now, a time of chaos, corruption, and darkness. And how does it end? With fire, with water, with a reset that cleanses the world for something new. The Aztecs too believed we live under the fifth sun, a world preceded by four others, each destroyed by a different force. Earthquakes, floods, flames from the sky. Their calendars marked not just agricultural seasons, but cosmic cycles of rebirth and ruin. Why this obsession with time repeating itself, and more chilling? What if they weren't wrong? Consider the Sumerians, one of the world's oldest civilizations. Their king lists include rulers said to have reigned for thousands of years, impossible lengths dismissed as myth. But what if those numbers weren't literal? What if they reference cycles of civilization, ages of humanity rising, flourishing, and falling into darkness, over and over? Or look at the ancient Egyptians, whose calendars aligned perfectly with astronomical phenomena we only recently began to understand. Their temples captured sunlight on exact days of the year, markers not just for farming, but perhaps for something more profound, a way to track cosmic patterns we've forgotten. And then there are the lesser-known artifacts. The Antikythera mechanism predicting celestial events far into the future. The Dresden Codex charting Venus cycles with eerie precision. Aboriginal Dreamtime stories describing cosmic rhythms that mirror modern astrophysics. How did they know? These were cultures separated by oceans and time, yet they all spoke of cycles, of endings, of worlds, reborn from the ashes of the old. And here's the unsettling part. Many of these calendars converge around certain dates, moments of cosmic alignment, solar flares, planetary conjunctions, moments when, historically, empires have crumbled, natural disasters have surged, societies have shifted dramatically. Coincidence? Maybe. But what if time wants to reset itself? What if history isn't a progression forward, but a wheel turning, grinding civilizations beneath it before lifting them up again? And what if we're nearing another turn of that wheel? As you breathe in slowly, let the thought settle. The past isn't gone. The future isn't waiting. They're all part of a cycle, spinning endlessly, pulling us along whether we notice or not. Somewhere out there, beneath ancient stones and forgotten texts, the warnings remain. Not as threats, not as prophecy, but as reminders. This has happened before. It will happen again. Next, we'll venture into the realm of dreams. Visions people claim to share across continents and cultures, raising the question, can our minds connect beyond space and time? But for now, rest. Let the symbols fade. The cycles spin quietly beneath your awareness. In and out. Time moves, and so do we. Imagine closing your eyes at night, slipping into the warm embrace of sleep. The world around you fades, your body sinks deeper into stillness, and your mind begins to drift. Colors swirl, sounds echo from nowhere, Images appear. Strange landscapes, unfamiliar faces. A dream, just a dream. Or is it? Now imagine waking up and telling someone about that dream, only to hear them describe the exact same thing, the same places, the same faces, the same sensations. How? You never told them. You didn't plan it. And yet, you both went there, together. Close your eyes again. Feel the weightlessness of dream space. That peculiar sense of knowing you're somewhere else, somewhere real, yet intangible. Could dreams be more than just flickering brain activity? Could they be doors, bridges, shared spaces beyond the limits of our waking minds? Throughout history, stories of shared dreams have surfaced. Accounts of people experiencing the same visions on the same nights, thousands of miles apart. Skeptics call it coincidence. Psychologists suggest subconscious influence, but sometimes the details are too precise, too eerie. Take the case of two soldiers during World War I, stationed on opposite fronts, both dreaming of the same crumbling church surrounded by fog. In their letters, discovered years later, they described identical symbols carved into the walls, the same hollow bell tower, the same overwhelming feeling of dread. They never met, never exchanged stories. Yet, they dream together. Or consider a modern example: online forums filled with strangers recounting identical dream landscapes, vast empty cities, endless hallways, a familiar yet unknown place, dubbed the back rooms. People from different cultures, different languages, describing the same surreal architecture. Why? Is it a cultural meme slipping into collective thought? Or something older? Something deeper? Then there's the phenomenon known as the Global Dream Project, an experiment where people worldwide were asked to record their dreams. Over time, researchers noticed recurring patterns: a vast library with infinite shelves, a dark ocean stretching beyond sight, a door that appears but never opens. What's most unsettling? Many participants had never heard the others' accounts before reporting their own. How do so many people, separated by distance and experience, dream the same places? Ancient cultures believed dreams connected us to other realms, worlds beyond sight, accessible only when consciousness slips its leash. The Aboriginal dream time speaks of a space where past, present, and future coexist, a cosmic web linking all living things. Tibetan monks train to navigate dream worlds consciously, believing them to be as real as waking life. Science offers theories: collective unconscious, memory glitches, the brain's pattern-seeking nature. And yet, that doesn't explain everything. Not the shared symbols, not the identical landscapes, not the dreams of events that haven't happened yet, until they do. What if dreams are like rivers, branches of a vast network where minds occasionally meet? You drift along your current, believing it's yours alone, until another merges with yours, flowing side by side for a time. Two consciousnesses sharing a space neither fully understands. And if that's true, what else is out there? Are these dream spaces just random constructs, or do they lead somewhere? Doors waiting to be opened, roads stretching into the unknown, places that exist beyond matter, pure thought, pure being. Some dreamers claim they've seen others, recognizable, aware. Dream people who aren't just figments of imagination, guides, travelers, or something else watching from the other side. And here's the question that keeps you awake long after the dream fades. If we can meet others in dreams, who else is dreaming us? As you breathe in, let the darkness of sleep drift over you. Imagine that you're stepping into one of those shared spaces now. your mind dissolving into the vastness, joining countless others beyond the veil. Lights flicker, voices echo softly. Somewhere out there, another dreamer reaches toward you, or past you, or through you. Next, we'll explore final mysteries, the places where history, dreams, and the unknown blur into something neither fully real nor entirely imagined. But for now, rest. Let your mind drift, in and out. You're not dreaming alone. Imagine walking down a street you know well, each turn familiar, every building etched into your memory, the same cracks in the pavement, the same flickering street lamp that's always been there. But then, something feels off. The buildings seem taller, the shadows deeper. The air hums with a strange stillness. You glance back, and the street you just walked vanishes into darkness. Where are you? No, not where. What is this place? Close your eyes. Feel that sensation. That disorienting, stomach-dropping awareness that something has shifted. That you've slipped somehow into a space that shouldn't exist. Not a dream, not fully real. Something in between. Throughout history, people have spoken of places that seem to sit outside reality, locations where time twists, space folds, and the laws of nature seem to pause. The Japanese call them kamikakushi, spirit places where people vanish, only to reappear days or years later, unchanged and confused. In Celtic folklore, they're thin places, spots where the boundary between worlds wears thin, where one wrong step takes you somewhere else. These aren't just old stories. Modern accounts abound. Travelers turning down a road that shouldn't exist, driving for hours before re-emerging onto a highway miles from where they started. Hikers walking into fog and finding themselves surrounded by landscapes that don't match any map. Then, just as suddenly, stepping back into familiar ground. Buildings appearing where none stood before. Doors that open to hallways stretching far beyond the space they should occupy. Some call them glitches in reality. Moments when the simulation, if that's what this is, falters. Others speak of alternate dimensions bleeding into ours, chance overlaps in an infinite multiverse. Or perhaps they're remnants of something older, places once known to ancient peoples, forgotten by modern minds but still there, waiting for the occasional wanderer to stumble through. Consider the Bennington Triangle in Vermont. Dozens of people vanishing in a small area, some disappearing right behind their companions. Or the Hoya Forest in Romania, where visitors report sudden disorientation, lost time, and strange lights weaving between the trees. Science offers theories, magnetic anomalies, psychological effects, but the stories persist. People go in, some don't come out, others do, changed. And then there are doors, literal ones, stone arches hidden in forests, doorways carved into mountainsides with no known builders, no known purpose. In Peru, Puerta de Hayumarca is called the Gate of the Gods. Local legend says shamans with the right ritual can pass through it. To where, no one knows. Most see just rock, but some claim to feel a pull, a deep hum resonating in their bones. What if these places are entry points, not just to other lands or times, but to realities beyond our comprehension? Worlds layered over ours, accessible only through chance or intention. And here's the most unsettling thought. What if you've been in one and didn't realize? A moment of déjà vu. A street that seems stretched, unfamiliar. A feeling that the world just shifted slightly, off kilter. We brush it off. But maybe, just maybe, You stepped into a place between places and stepped back before you noticed. Or worse, maybe some people never notice. Maybe some people never come back. As you breathe in slowly, let the streets fade, the doorways dissolve into darkness. Feel the thinness of the world around you, the way reality feels like fabric, stretched taut, sometimes worn thin enough to see through. Somewhere out there, maybe right beneath your feet, another place waits. Quiet, patient, always just there. Next, we'll listen to sounds without origin, echoes in empty places, voices calling from nowhere, noises that defy explanation. But, for now, rest. Let the words drift away, their forgotten meanings dissolving like mist in the dark, in and out. Some languages are lost, and some were never meant to be understood. Imagine stepping through one of those strange places between worlds. The kind where reality thins, where the air seems to pulse with secrets. You walk forward, heart pounding, the last echoes of those in-between places still clinging to your mind. And then, you hear it. A voice. No, voices. Soft, layered like waves breaking against a distant shore. Words float through the air. Beautiful, haunting, and utterly incomprehensible. They weave through your thoughts like a song you can't grasp. Familiar and foreign all at once. You strain to understand, but the meaning slips through your fingers like smoke. What are they saying? And more unsettling, who is speaking? For as long as humans have spoken, languages have been born, lived, and died. Some fade slowly, slipping into silence as their last speakers pass away. Others vanish, abruptly, lost to conquest, disaster, or deliberate erasure. Today, thousands of languages have disappeared, leaving behind only fragments, scratches on stone, weathered manuscripts, or whispered legends passed down with fading accuracy. But what about the ones we still have? The ones we see and can't understand? Languages carved into temple walls, etched onto ancient artifacts, written in forgotten books. Languages that refuse to yield their meaning, no matter how hard we try. Take the Rongorongo script of Easter Island, a series of glyphs discovered on wooden tablets, intricate and deliberate. Decades of study, and yet, no one knows what they say. Prayers, records, warnings, or something else entirely. The islanders' oral traditions offer no answers. The words remain silent. And then there's the Phaistos disc, a clay disc found on the island of Crete, covered in mysterious symbols arranged in a spiral. Scholars debate endlessly. Some claim it's a game, others a religious text, but no one truly knows. The disc sits in a glass case, patient, its secrets locked behind symbols no living tongue can pronounce. Why do these lost languages unsettle us so deeply? Perhaps it's because words are how we connect, how we reach across time, space, and culture. To find a message and fail to understand it feels like standing at a closed door with no key. Someone tried to speak to us across the centuries, and we can't answer. But sometimes, the words seem to speak anyway. There are stories, quiet, unsettling, of people dreaming in unknown tongues, languages they've never learned, never heard, until the dream. Scientists call it cryptomnesia, forgotten, memories bubbling up. But what if, like the shared dreams we explored earlier, something else is at work? What if these lost words still echo, bouncing through time, searching for ears that will listen? And then there are the truly bizarre accounts, Travelers hearing disembodied voices in caves, chanting in no known language, unexplained recordings, capturing speech patterns unlike anything documented. Children spontaneously speaking words that don't match any modern dialect. Where do those words come from? What if language isn't just a human invention? What if it's something deeper, woven into the fabric of existence? A universal code, glimpsed in mathematics, in the sequences of DNA, in the vibrations of sound and light. Perhaps the ancients didn't create their languages. Perhaps they discovered them, tuning into something older, something fundamental. And that leads to an unsettling possibility. What if those forgotten words were never meant for us? What if they were messages between something else, civilizations beyond memory, beings beyond comprehension, warnings or invitations carved into stone, waiting for the right ears to hear, or worse? What if some words are better left unspoken? As you breathe in, let the voices drift away, soft like wind through trees. You'll never know what they said. Most of us won't. But somewhere out there, the words remain, scratched into walls, hidden in caves, floating in the spaces between worlds. And perhaps, if you listen closely enough, you'll hear them again. Not with your ears, not with your mind, but with something deeper. Next, we'll explore the ocean's hidden graveyards, vast watery expanses where ships vanish, never to return, and where the sea holds stories far older than we imagine. But for now, rest. Let the whispers fade into the night, in and out. Some words are lost, some are simply waiting. The voices fade. The whispers of forgotten languages dissolve into silence. But the silence doesn't last. You hear it now, the deep, rhythmic pulse of waves crashing against an unseen shore. Salt fills the air, tangy and sharp. The ground beneath your feet seems to shift, swaying gently as if you're standing on something that floats and drifts. Open your eyes. Dark water stretches in every direction. Endless, vast, a living expanse that breathes with ancient, patient rhythm. And somewhere, beneath those waves, lies a graveyard, not one marked with stones or names. No headstones, no mourners, just wreckage. Rotting wood, twisted metal, remnants of ships swallowed by the sea. Stories lost beneath cold, black depths. Thousands of them, maybe more. Some sank with storms, others with war, but many simply vanished. No distress calls, no debris, no answers. Where do they go and why? Do some never resurface? For as long as humans have ventured onto the water, the sea has taken its toll. Shipwrecks line the ocean floor like scars. Centuries of ambition and tragedy. Many have stories, names, dates recorded in logs and history books. But what about the ones that don't? Take the USS Cyclops, a massive American cargo ship that disappeared in 1918 with over 300 men aboard. No wreckage found, no survivors, just gone. Swallowed somewhere within the infamous Bermuda Triangle, a patch of ocean notorious for devouring ships and planes alike. Navigation instruments fail, radios go silent, time seems to bend. Skeptics blame storms, magnetic anomalies. Believers whisper of something stranger. And then there's the Mary Celeste, found adrift in the Atlantic in 1872. Everything was in place, cargo untouched, food still set on tables, lifeboats intact. But the crew? Gone. No signs of struggle, no trace of where they went. just an empty ship rocking gently on calm waves. What could make an entire crew vanish without a fight? Even more chilling are the ghost ships that appear out of nowhere. Derelicts drifting into busy harbors, sails tattered, decks empty. No logbooks, no clues. Ships reported missing decades earlier, returning silent and hollow. Where were they all that time? And then there are the graveyards you never find. The Drake Passage near Antarctica, storm-ravaged, shrouded in fog, littered with ships that never reached their destination. Divers searching wrecks speak of sudden cold spots, inexplicable currents pulling downward, shadows moving where they shouldn't. Cameras malfunction, lights flicker. The ocean watches. Some ancient maps speak of lost fleets, entire armadas said to vanish beneath sudden waves or strange lights flickering beneath the surface. Myths? Exaggerations? Maybe. But when modern vessels report similar phenomena, glowing, water, massive sonar readings with nothing there, you start to wonder if the sea holds memories deeper than we understand. And what of the legends that say the ocean itself is alive, that it remembers, that certain places are hungry, feeding on metal and flesh, dragging them into darkness? Ridiculous, until you stand on a deck at midnight, staring into the endless black, and feel something looking back. Why does the ocean take so much and give back so little? Currents shift, sand covers wrecks, pressure crushes wood and bone. Maybe that's all it is, nature, vast and indifferent. But part of you wonders, what if some ships don't sink? What if they go somewhere, through folds in reality, through cracks in the fabric of the world, like stepping between pages in a book, here one moment, elsewhere the next? And what of those who sail too far? Stories speak of mariners finding islands that shouldn't exist, coasts that shift like mirages. Some return babbling of strange lights beneath the waves, cities perhaps, or things older than cities. Others return changed, aged beyond their years, eyes empty, souls lost, and some never return at all. As you breathe in, let the salt air fill your lungs, the weight of endless water pressing down from above, below, all around. Imagine standing on a ship's deck, surrounded by fog, the world narrowing to grey mist and creaking wood. Somewhere out there, countless wrecks lie silent beneath the waves, names forgotten, lives erased, stories drowned, or waiting. Next, we'll look up instead of down, into the skies that remember, where unexplained lights and ancient aerial phenomena challenge everything we think we know about what moves above us. But for now, rest. Let the waves fade, the graveyard drift into darkness, in and out. The sea keeps its secrets, and not all wrecks want to be found. The ocean fades beneath you, the salt air dissolves, the waves grow silent. You lift your gaze. Above you stretches a vast expanse, endless, open, dark. The sky, it looks empty, quiet, but the sky remembers. It remembers every gaze lifted in wonder, every prayer whispered beneath the stars, every fleeting glance, every long, searching stare into its depths. And sometimes, when you least expect, it looks back. For as long as humans have walked the earth, we've looked up, seeking answers, stories, signs. The sky holds beauty, shimmering, auroras, blazing comets, stars scattered like diamonds on velvet. But sometimes, it holds something else. Lights that move against the wind, shapes that hang motionless before darting away at impossible speeds, glows that pulse without sound, watching, waiting. We call them many things: UFOs, aerial anomalies, will-o'-the-wisps. Science offers explanations: atmospheric phenomena, reflections, human imagination reaching beyond itself. And yet, the stories persist, stories of skies that flicker with things that shouldn't be there. Consider the Phoenix Lights of 1997. Thousands of witnesses, including pilots and military personnel, reporting massive, silent lights drifting over Arizona. Or the Foo Fighters of World War II. Not the band, but glowing orbs that danced around fighter planes, evading bullets, mocking logic. Pilots from both sides saw them. No one knew what they were. But this isn't new. Look back, way back. Ancient cave paintings in France depict figures reaching toward shapes descending from the heavens. Shapes uncannily similar to modern sightings. Medieval manuscripts speak of fiery shields hovering over battlefields, casting strange shadows on the ground. In 1561, the people of Nuremberg awoke to find the sky filled with rods, spheres, and crosses, all swirling in what witnesses described as a celestial battle. Mass hysteria, imagination fueled by fear, perhaps. But how do you explain reports separated by centuries, describing the same things? Then there are the places where the sky seems thinner. In Norway, the Hessdalen lights flicker unpredictably, balls of glowing energy dancing above valleys, photographed, measured, yet unexplained. In Australia's outback, travelers report a shimmering, moving glow that follows them across desolate roads. And what of the black triangles? Vast, silent crafts seen hovering over cities, blocking out stars. No engines, no sound, just darkness. And the eerie hum that some say you don't hear, you feel. Theories abound. Advanced technology. Ours, or someone else's. Atmospheric plasma. Earth itself releasing energy in strange ways. Interdimensional. Visitors. Beings slipping through thin places in reality. But sometimes, the simplest explanation is the most unsettling. We're being watched, and here's where things get stranger. Some people disappear under those skies. Hikers found without their gear, footprints ending abruptly in open fields. Pilots reporting strange lights before going silent. Planes never recovered. Entire villages, like Anjikuni Lake in Canada, found empty, fires still burning, no sign of struggle, just gone. Witnesses claimed strange lights had hovered overhead days before. Coincidence or connection? Look up at the stars. They seem still, eternal. But what if something moves between them? What if the darkness between stars isn't empty at all? And what if the sky remembers every time someone looked up and was never seen again? As you breathe in slowly, let the vastness settle around you, the cold, quiet enormity pressing from above. Imagine lying beneath that sky, stars twinkling, the Milky Way stretching overhead. Beautiful, peaceful, until a light shifts. Not a plane, not a shooting star, something else. And for a heartbeat you wonder, is it looking back? Next, we'll descend again, but not underground. We'll enter the walls that hold forgotten histories, secret rooms, hidden passages, and the spaces built to conceal truths no one wanted found. But for now, rest. Let the sky close above you. The stars blink out one by one, in and out. The heavens hold stories we'll never fully hear, and some might not be meant for us. The sky fades above you. The stars blink out. The cold expanse dissolves into darkness. you open your eyes to something different, something closer. A corridor, narrow, dim. Stone walls stretch upward, the ceiling lost in shadow. You run your fingers along the rough surface, feeling the grooves, the indentations, marks of hands long gone, and then you hear it, a faint echo, not words, just presence, like the walls themselves are breathing, like they remember. History loves grand monuments, cathedrals, castles, towering palaces. We walk their halls, gaze at their carvings, marvel at their craftsmanship. But what about what lies beneath those stones, behind them, within them? Across the world, buildings hold secrets, hidden rooms sealed off for centuries, passages twisting, behind walls leading to places never meant to be found, doors that shouldn't exist, yet do. Why build a room no one can enter? Why seal away a passage so completely that it vanishes from records, from memory? What or who was meant to be hidden? Take the Great Pyramid of Giza, studied for generations, yet only recently revealing secret chambers untouched for thousands of years. No artifacts, no inscriptions, just empty space, vast, silent, waiting. Was it an architectural quirk? Or did the ancient builders intend to conceal something, or someone? Or consider the Winchester Mystery House in California, staircases that lead to nowhere, doors opening into walls, rooms constructed and sealed off without reason. Built by Sarah Winchester, haunted by grief and whispered warnings, she claimed the house had to keep growing to confuse the spirits following her. Madness, or something more. Visitors report cold drafts, distant footsteps echoing through empty halls, doors that lock themselves. And then there's Padmanabhaswamy Temple in India. Deep within lies a sealed vault, Vault B. Its entrance adorned with carvings of serpents, guarded for centuries. Legends say, opening it would unleash disaster, that what lies beyond isn't treasure, but something darker. Attempts to open it have failed. The door remains shut, and the walls, they wait. Why so many hidden spaces? Sometimes secrecy was practical. Escape routes for royalty, caches for forbidden knowledge, safe havens in times of war. But other times, the secrecy feels deliberate in ways that don't make sense. Rooms too small to use, passages looping in circles, chambers containing nothing. Or worse, chambers that seem to absorb sound, to listen. There are stories, quiet, unsettling, of people discovering hidden rooms behind the walls of old homes. Sometimes it's forgotten storage. Other times, they find beds, candles melted to stubs, recent footprints in the dust. Someone was there. Maybe still is. And what of the rooms that move? Ancient texts speak of shifting corridors, passages that change when you return, myths or places that respond to those who enter. Imagine standing in a hall, turning to find the door behind you, gone, the walls closing in, listening, watching, because that's the unsettling thought that lingers. What if these places weren't just built to keep people out? What if they were built to keep something in? And then there are the forgotten walls that hear. In certain castles and monasteries, whispers echo through stone. Conversations repeated from centuries past. Scientists call it stone tape theory. The idea that strong emotions can imprint on physical places, replaying under the right conditions. Is that why some rooms feel heavy, like sadness soaked into the mortar, like anger woven into the beams? You press your palm against the wall, cold. You lean in, and for a moment, you swear you hear breathing. Yours or someone else's. As you breathe in slowly, let the corridors stretch and twist in your mind, the narrow passageways, the doors half open, the walls holding stories you'll never fully hear. Somewhere, right now, someone is uncovering a room sealed for centuries, dust swirling, darkness stretching beyond the beam of a flashlight. Would you step inside? Would you close the door behind you? Next, we'll step outside, into forests that don't appear on maps, woods where people wander in and never come out. But for now, rest. Let the walls close around you, the echoes fade into silence, in and out. Some rooms stay hidden for a reason. Some doors should never be opened. The walls close behind you, sealing their whispers and hidden passages back into silence. You step forward, and the air changes. Cooler, fresher, but heavier. A forest surrounds you now, trees rising like ancient sentinels, their branches clawing at a grey sky. The ground beneath your feet is soft, blanketed in moss and fallen leaves. You hear the crunch of twigs as you walk, and then stop. That wasn't you. Silence stretches out, thick and suffocating. The trees loom closer. Shadows twist between the trunks. You glance back, expecting the path you came from to be there. It isn't. The forest has swallowed it whole. Forests have always been places of mystery. Dense, dark worlds where the rules of reality seem to bend. Cultures around the world speak of haunted woods, places where people vanish without a trace, compasses spin uselessly, and time stretches into something unrecognizable. And not all of these forests appear on maps. Some are hidden by nature, remote, inaccessible. Others are hidden by choice, forgotten, erased. Why? What lies within trees so old they remember things no human does? Take Japan's Aokigahara forest, the sea of trees. Step off the designated paths, and the world changes. Sound disappears, swallowed by dense foliage and volcanic rock that absorbs noise. People speak of seeing figures between the trees, of hearing voices calling them deeper. Even seasoned hikers have gotten lost just feet from the trails. Maps, useless, landmarks vanishing, and some never come out or consider Romania's Hoya forest, twisted trees bending in unnatural shapes, glowing orbs dancing between trunks. Photographs blur, electronic equipment fails. Visitors report sudden nausea, unexplained scratches, and the eerie sensation of being watched. In the United States, the Bennington Triangle, a stretch of wilderness in Vermont, has claimed hikers, hunters, and townsfolk alike. People vanish without footprints, without signs of struggle. Entire search parties come up empty, as if the forest simply took them. But it's not just the modern world. Ancient stories speak of fairy forests, not the charming kind, but places where the land itself seems alive and hungry. Step into certain groves, the legends say, and you'll find yourself walking in circles, no matter which way you turn. The trees shift behind you, guiding you deeper. Some tales speak of travelers entering a forest, hearing laughter and music, following it, and emerging hours later to find years have passed. Science offers explanations: magnetic anomalies disrupting compasses, dense vegetation disorienting the mind, carbon dioxide pockets causing hallucinations. But none of that explains why some forests move, or why GPS devices show people walking straight, while their actual tracks spiral inward like a predator circling prey. And then there are the rumors of structures deep in the woods, stone circles, ancient altars, doors standing alone, with no buildings around them, Some hikers report finding staircases in the middle of the wilderness, intact, clean, wrong. No one knows why they're there. Most turn back. A few climb them. No one agrees on what happens next. Why do these forests feel alive? Is it just imagination? Primitive fear of the dark? Or do some places hold awareness? And what if certain forests are thin places, where the boundaries between worlds stretch taut, ready to tear? What if, when people vanish, they don't die? They leave? Step sideways into somewhere else, somewhere the trees wanted them to go. You stand still now, breathing in the cool, damp air. Branches creak overhead. A shadow moves between trunks. You blink. It's gone. Or did it just move closer? As you breathe in slowly, let the forest close around you. The weight of trees older than memory. Roots tangled with stories never told. Somewhere, deeper in the woods, paths twist in impossible ways. Somewhere, people are still walking, searching for a way out that doesn't exist. Would you keep walking, or would you stop and listen to the trees? Next, we'll uncover what lies beneath bones, the stories skeletons tell when words fail, and the mysteries hidden in remains that shouldn't exist. But for now, rest. Let the forest grow still, the shadows drift deeper, in and out. Some paths lead home, others never end. The forest fades. The trees dissolve into darkness, their twisting branches receding like distant memories. And then, stillness. Not the living stillness of the woods. This is different, heavier, colder. Stone walls rise around you again, but this time, you're underground. The air is dry, tinged with dust, and the faint scent of earth undisturbed for centuries. Ahead, flickering light reveals shapes scattered across the floor. Shapes that, even before you see them clearly, you recognize: bones, ribs curling like collapsed cages, skulls grinning in eternal silence, spines coiled in strange, unnatural positions. They lie where they fell, or where someone placed them. And the air is thick with a truth that gnaws at the edges of your mind. Bones remember. We think of skeletons as remnants, fragments of lives long gone, but bones tell stories, if you know how to listen. They hold traces of age, of illness, of trauma. Historians and archaeologists can read them like pages in a book. But sometimes, the stories don't make sense. Sometimes bones tell impossible tales. Take the Lovelock Cave in Nevada. Excavations in the early 1900s uncovered massive human remains. Skeletons reportedly over 8 feet tall. Myth, misidentification, or evidence of something history refuses to acknowledge. Local Paiute legends speak of red-haired giants driven into caves and burned alive. Stories dismissed as folklore until bones surfaced. Most were quietly removed. Few remain. No one talks about them. Then there's Kabwe 1, the so-called Broken Hill skull found in Zambia, dated to hundreds of thousands of years old, yet bearing strange features. Bullet-like holes in the bone, smooth-edged as if made by modern weaponry. How? No tools of that kind should have existed. Scientists argue. Theories swirl. The questions remain. And what of the Star Child skull, an oddly shaped cranium discovered in Mexico? Genetics tests inconclusive, some claiming deformity, others suggesting something far stranger. The shape, the density, none of it fits human norms. Is it a genetic anomaly, or a relic of something we've never encountered? But it's not just shape, it's placement. Skeletons found in layers of rock millions of years old. long before humans were supposed to exist. Footprints fossilized beside dinosaur tracks, defying timelines carved into textbooks. Tools embedded in coal seams, skeletons discovered in geological strata that shouldn't contain them. How do bones end up where they don't belong? Time travel? Lost civilizations predating everything we know? Or is our entire understanding of history wrong? And then there are mass graves hidden beneath cities, bones stacked, tangled, forgotten. Some known, plague pits, war casualties. Others have no explanation. Hundreds, thousands of skeletons with no records, no context. Who were they? Why were they buried and erased? Sometimes the bones seem to speak, not in words, but in presence. Catacombs beneath Paris stretch for miles, skulls lining walls like grim wallpaper. Visitors report whispers echoing through the tunnels, soft, sibilant, words just beyond comprehension. Others feel cold hands brush against their skin, hear footsteps that never approach. In certain burial mounds, people speak of standing among ancient bones and feeling watched, not by something living, by the dead themselves. And here's the unsettling thought that lingers as you stare at the hollow sockets of a skull lying at your feet. What if bones don't just remember? What if they wait? Wait for acknowledgement, for recognition, for someone to piece together the stories carved into marrow and mineral, or worse. What if some bones wait for something to wake them up? You kneel, reaching out. Your fingers brush bone, smooth, cool, and for a heartbeat, you feel a pulse. Not yours, not living, something older, deeper. You pull back, heart racing. The bones lie still, but the feeling lingers. As you breathe in slowly, let the silence settle. The weight of countless lives, condensed into bone and dust. Somewhere, beneath the ground you walk every day, bones lie in the dark. Some honored, some forgotten, some deliberately hidden. Would you dig them up? Would you listen to what they have to say? Next, we'll follow roads built for no one, paths leading nowhere, stretching into desolation and mystery. But for now, rest. Let the bones lie still, there, stories sinking into darkness, in and out. Bones remember, and some memories never fade. The bones fade into darkness. The weight of ancient lives, ancient deaths, slips away like dust in the wind. And then, you hear it, gravel crunching underfoot, a breeze whistling through empty space. You look up, you're standing on a road, straight, endless, black asphalt stretching into the horizon beneath a starless sky. No cars, no lights, no signs, just you and the road. You glance back, expecting the bones, the darkness, but there's nothing. Just more road, two directions, no clues. Which way would you go? And then another thought creeps in. What if it doesn't matter? What if both ways lead nowhere? Roads connect us, towns, cities, lives intertwined by asphalt and intention. We think of them as purposeful. They lead somewhere, always. But what about the roads that don't? The ones that stretch into wilderness and end abruptly? Or worse, the ones that don't end at all? Around the world, stories surface of roads that defy logic, paths that seem to move, to change, to trap, roads you drive down and never reach the end of, or roads that turn back on themselves, no matter how far you go. Take Japan's old Chusetsu tunnel, sealed after numerous accidents and strange reports. Travelers speak of driving through it, only to emerge back where they started. No turns, no exits, just a looping nightmare. Lights flicker, radios fill with static, and some claim to hear footsteps echoing from the back seat. Or consider Clinton Road in New Jersey, stretching through dense forest, lined with legends. Visitors report phantom vehicles appearing out of nowhere, headlights blazing before vanishing. Others tell of ghostly children throwing coins back from the bridge, cold hands brushing against windows. Drive too far, and the road seems to stretch, minutes turning to hours with no end in sight. And then there's the Karoo Highway in South Africa, where motorists report seeing towns that don't exist, gas stations that vanish when approached. Some follow, unfamiliar roads branching off, only to find themselves miles away from where they should be, as if space folded beneath their tires. Why do these roads behave this way? Explanations abound. Optical illusions, exhaustion, magnetic anomalies. But some people, those who felt it, whisper something darker. The roads choose. They lead you where they want. And sometimes, they don't lead anywhere. Sometimes, they just keep going. Imagine driving at night, headlights cutting through fog, the world outside reduced to blackness and fleeting glimpses of trees. Hours pass, no turns, no signs, gas needle dropping, panic rising. Then, a figure stands in the road ahead. You swerve, look back, nothing there, or worse. Someone is there, closer than before. And what about the roads that appear, and then vanish? Locals in remote villages speak of phantom roads, paths that seem to appear after heavy rain or at certain times of the year. Follow them, and you'll find ruins that don't exist on any map, or fields where time feels wrong, watches freezing, the sun hanging too long in the sky, and there are places, hidden on old maps, where roads should be, where they once were, yet now, nothing, just fields, forests, as if the roads were never built. Were they erased, forgotten, or did they leave? Because here's the thought that sticks in your mind as you stand on that endless stretch of asphalt. What if some roads aren't meant for us? What if they lead to places outside what we understand? Thin spaces, in between worlds, and worse. What if someone or something uses them to come the other way? You start walking, one foot in front of the other. No landmarks, no sounds beyond your breathing, your steps echoing against emptiness. Then, faintly, you hear it. Tires on gravel, a car approaching, headlights flaring. You wave, the car slows, and as it passes, you glance inside. Empty. No driver, no passengers, just empty. And the road stretches on, always on. As you breathe in slowly, let the road unravel beneath your thoughts. The endless path winding through places that never were, never will be. Somewhere out there, asphalt cracks under phantom wheels. Somewhere, someone is still walking, still driving, still searching for an end that doesn't exist. Would you keep going? Would you turn back? But then you remember. There was no back. Next, we'll explore the unsettling nature of visions. Eyes that see too much. People witnessing things no one else can explain. Glimpses into something beyond human sight. But for now, rest. Let the road stretch into darkness, the tires fade into distance, in and out. Some roads go nowhere, some don't. Let you leave, the road dissolves beneath your feet. The asphalt cracks, fragments, and vanishes into darkness. You blink, and suddenly, you see, not with your eyes, not just with them, Images flicker. People standing where no one stands. Landscapes shifting, like reflections in rippling water. Faces flash before you, unknown yet familiar. A voice murmurs in your ear, "You weren't meant to see this." But you do, and you can't look away. Throughout history, people have claimed to see things others can't. Visions, apparitions, glimpses of futures never spoken, pasts never learned. Sometimes they come in dreams. Other times, they appear in waking life, bleeding into reality like spilled ink on paper. What if sight isn't just physical? What if seeing is more than what the eyes take in? Some call it intuition, others madness. But what if it's access? Take Joan of Arc, a young girl claiming to see saints and hear voices guiding her through impossible victories. Delusion, some said. But how did an untrained peasant lead armies with such precision? Were they hallucinations, or visions of something beyond comprehension? Or consider Nostradamus, his quatrains cryptic, layered with meaning. Dismissed by many, yet others find eerie parallels between his writings and events centuries later. Coincidence? Or did he see through time? Modern accounts are no less unsettling. Military pilots report seeing objects beyond the visible spectrum, crafts invisible to radar, shimmering in and out of sight. Scientists in deep-sea submersibles describe seeing structures at impossible depths, only for them to vanish when lights flicker back on. And then there are ordinary people, walking down streets, driving to work, suddenly seeing something wrong. Buildings where none should be. People with faces that shift when looked at directly. Doorways opening into places filled with cold light and rooms that breathe. Why do some people see what others can't? Are they gifted, cursed, or simply tuned to a frequency most of us ignore? Science suggests optical illusions, neurological misfires, but that doesn't explain shared visions, people in different places seeing the same thing at the same time. It doesn't explain why ancient texts from vastly different cultures describe similar visions. Eyes in the sky that watch silently. Figures of light standing at the edges of fields. Shadowed beings flickering in the corners of rooms, just out of direct sight. Some say these visions are glimpses into parallel realities, layers of existence brushing against ours. Others claim they're messages, warnings, guidance, or tests. And then there's a darker possibility. What if something is looking back? Imagine standing at your window late at night. You glance at your reflection in the glass and notice it's not copying you. Your heart skips. You look closer. Your reflection smiles. You didn't. Visions aren't always distant. Sometimes they're right here, and it's not always sight. Some people feel the visions, emotions surging out of nowhere. Walk into an empty room and sadness swells like a tide. Stand on a certain road and fear grips you before your mind catches up. What are these moments? Residual energy? Echoes of events too intense to fade? Or are you seeing through someone else's eyes? Someone who was there long before you, or long after? And what if seeing too much has consequences? Stories abound of people who witnessed things they shouldn't and paid the price. Dreams that won't let go. Visions that creep into waking hours. Reality peeling back layer by layer. Because once you see, you can't unsee. You close your eyes now, but the images remain. Flashing, fading, waiting. And somewhere, behind it all, you feel it. A gaze. Watching, observing, Not hostile, not kind, just aware. You see it, and it sees you. As you breathe in slowly, let the visions dissolve. The flickering faces, the shifting landscapes, the eyes blinking out of existence. Somewhere people are still seeing, still witnessing things no one believes. Would you open your eyes again? Or is ignorance safer? Next, we'll explore flames that never die. Eternal fires burning without fuel or explanation, flickering with secrets older than history itself. But for now, rest. Let the images fade, the gaze drift away, in and out. Some eyes see too much, and some visions never let go. The visions fade, the flickering images dissolve into darkness, leaving nothing but the faint hum of your heartbeat in your ears. And then, warmth. Gentle at first, a comforting glow against the cold. You turn toward it. A flame dances in the dark, small, steady, alive. No wood, no fuel, no reason for it to burn. And yet, it does. You reach out, drawn to its warmth, but the closer you get, the more it feels wrong. Not threatening, not welcoming, just watchful. Flames aren't supposed to be aware, but this one feels like it is. Throughout history, fire has been a symbol of life, destruction, transformation. We light flames for warmth, for light, for ceremony, and we understand them. Fuel, oxygen, ignition. Simple, predictable, except when they're not. Across the world, certain flames refuse to die. They burn without explanation, no fuel to consume, no source to sustain them. And yet, year after year, century after century, they keep burning. Why? How? And what are they burning for? Take the eternal flame falls in New York, a small waterfall cascading over rock, behind which a flame flickers continuously. Geologists explain it away. Natural gas seepage. But the volume of gas found isn't enough to sustain such a flame. And yet, it persists. Locals speak of standing before it, feeling an odd pull, like the flame is aware of being watched. Or consider Mount Chimera in Turkey, fires burning from rock crevices for thousands of years, referenced in ancient myths as the breath of monsters. No fuel deposits large enough to justify the longevity, just fire, breathing from the earth. In India, the Jwalaji temple houses a flame believed to have burned for millennia, worshipped as a goddess, defying scientific attempts to explain its source. Engineers and scientists test the ground, the air, find nothing conclusive. The flame just is. And then there are the lesser-known flames, small, hidden, whispered about in local legend. A cave deep in the forests of Romania, where a blue flame hovers above the ground, never spreading, never fading. A clearing in Siberia, where the earth itself smolders. No smoke, no ash, just a flickering light visible at night, refusing to be extinguished. An abandoned mine in Pennsylvania, Centralia, where fires burn underground, untouchable, unstoppable. Residents evacuated, the ground above collapsing, yet the fires below burn on. Why do these flames persist? Natural phenomena? Gas pockets? Chemical reactions? Perhaps. But some stories suggest otherwise. Some say these are warning fires, lit by ancient hands, meant to burn until a certain day or event. Others claim they're portals, flames marking places where the earth's skin is thin, the fire not from beneath us, but from somewhere else. And then there are darker whispers, What if the flames aren't burning fuel, but time, slowly consuming the years, the space between moments, or worse? What if they're watching, eyes made of fire, flickering impatience, waiting for someone, anyone, to step closer? You kneel before the flame. It crackles softly, like laughter far away. You feel warmth on your face, the glow painting your skin in flickering gold. And then, a flicker, a shape in the flame. Was that a face? You blink. It's gone. Or, was it ever there? You lean in. The flame bends toward you. For a heartbeat. You understand. But the knowledge is too vast. Too old. Your mind recoils. The flame straightens, flickers, laughs, and burns on as you breathe. In, let the warmth settle against your skin, the heat of a fire that never started and may never end. Somewhere, these flames flicker in darkness, untouched by rain, wind, time. Would you try to extinguish it, or would you let it burn and keep its secrets? Next, we'll listen to sounds without origin, echoes in empty places, voices calling from nowhere, noises that defy explanation. But for now, rest. Let the fire glow gently, its warmth fading as darkness folds around you, in and out. Some flames never die, and some never should. The fire fades. Its warmth recedes, leaving only darkness. Silence stretches out like an endless void. And then, sound. Soft at first, a distant tap, tap, tap echoing through the dark. You turn toward it. Nothing. But the sound grows louder. A whisper follows. Words just beyond recognition, like voices underwater. You strain to hear us. Your pulse quickens. The room is empty. You are alone. And yet, the sound is not. Throughout history, people have encountered sounds that defy explanation, echoes with no source, voices from empty rooms, footsteps following in abandoned buildings. We live in a world filled with noise, machines humming, nature breathing, people speaking. But what happens when sound emerges from nothing? When there are no machines, no people, just noise, and worse. What if the sound is meant for you? Consider the Taos hum in New Mexico, an inexplicable low-frequency drone heard by residents for decades. Scientists investigate, measure, hypothesize, but no source is found. Some people hear it constantly, driving them to the brink of madness. Others hear nothing at all, or the bloop, an ultra-low frequency sound recorded in 1997 by underwater microphones in the Pacific Ocean. Initially thought to be an iceberg, its power and frequency suggested something alive, yet no known creature could produce such a sound. The ocean listened, the microphones captured, and the world wondered. Then there's the phenomenon of numbers stations. Shortwave radio broadcasts transmitting endless sequences of numbers, strange tones, sometimes snippets of eerie, mechanical voices. No one claims them. No one explains them. And yet, they broadcast constantly, relentlessly. Some say they're coded messages, others that they're something far older. Machines set in motion long before we understood radio waves. But sounds aren't just technological. They haunt places, linger where they shouldn't. Step into certain abandoned buildings, and you might hear footsteps echoing down empty halls, doors creaking open, whispers threading through the air like invisible tendrils. Scientists call it auditory pareidolia, our brains finding patterns where none exist. But what if they do exist? Visitors to old battlefields report hearing the clash of swords, gunfire echoing across empty fields. Tourists in ancient catacombs describe murmurs that grow louder the deeper they go. Entire towns, like the ghost town of Pripyat, seem to breathe with sound. Laughter echoing in empty playgrounds, alarms blaring in buildings long abandoned. How do sounds outlive the people who made them? Is time recording itself? Memories etched into stone, air, space? Or are others speaking, calling, listening? And then there are the voices that know your name. Reports surface of people hearing their names called in the middle of the night. Soft, familiar, just outside the door. They open it. No one there. Hikers deep in forests hear distant shouts, drawing them off path. Search parties find no one calling, just empty woods. And worst of all, are the sounds that mimic a loved one's voice heard from another room, when that loved one isn't home. Your dog barking while asleep at your feet. Your own voice repeated back to you from the dark, because that's the unsettling thought that lingers. What if the sounds aren't echoes? What if there's something else? Listening back, you stand still now, heart pounding. A distant knock 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 sounds behind you, slow, steady. You don't turn. The knocking stops. Silence. Then, a whisper at your ear. Don't look. You close your eyes. Breathe in, out. The sound fades. For now, as you breathe in, slowly, let the echoes dissolve into darkness, the whispers fading, the footsteps retreating into silence. Somewhere, sounds call out from empty rooms, empty places. Would you follow the voice, or would you cover your ears and pray it stops? Next, we'll reach the final chapter, where all threads converge, where mysteries bleed into one another, and where the line between reality and the unknown shatters. But for now, rest. Let the echoes drift away, the silence wrap around you, in and out. Some sounds fade, others never stop. The echoes fade. Silence stretches once more, vast, endless. But this time, the silence isn't empty. It's waiting. You stand at the edge of something you can't define. Not a place, not a moment, but a threshold. Everything you've seen, heard, felt, the voices, the roads, the visions, the flames, the bones, all of it, led here. You glance back. There's nothing behind you anymore. No path, no sound, no air, just this. Ahead, darkness twists like a living thing. Shapes form and unform, shifting between faces you recognize and those you wish you didn't. The air hums, vibrating with every story, every fragment of history lost and remembered. And then you step forward. What if every mystery isn't separate? What if every story is a piece, a sliver of something larger, something older than time? What if the voices in empty places, the roads that lead nowhere, the visions glimpsed through flickering flames, are threads in the same tapestry? Not coincidences, not random, designed, histories hidden, languages lost, dreams shared, forests swallowing paths, skies blinking with things beyond stars, bones whispering stories no one hears. What if they all point to one thing, a truth so vast, so ancient, so incomprehensible, that your mind refuses to hold it? And yet, here you are, at the threshold. You breathe in, the darkness ahead pulses. Come closer. It's not a voice. It's not sound. It's understanding. Everything collapses in on itself. Time folding like paper, space twisting like smoke. You see flashes, a hand carving symbols into stone, beneath an ocean, eyes blinking open in the void between stars, flames flickering in places where no light should reach, roads spiraling into skies that aren't skies, faces without mouths, smiling, and you understand. For a moment, just one heartbeat, you know why the forests twist, why the bones wait, why the sounds call, why the skies remember, why the roads lead nowhere. Everything is connected, and then it's too much. The knowledge shatters, slipping through your mind like sand through fingers. Gone, lost, all that remains is the threshold, waiting. Would you cross it, step fully into the unknown, or turn back to the roads, the forests, the skies you think you know, but then you remember, there is no back. There never was. The threshold is the world. The world is the threshold, and you've been standing in it all along. You close your eyes, breathe in, out. Everything is quiet. Everything is vast. Everything just is. Thank you for walking this path, for listening, for seeing. Some roads end, some don't, and some begin where endings lie. Rest now. Let the mysteries settle. Let the darkness embrace you, in and out. Sleep well, if you can.